Chapter 76. Lin Tianwei was shocked. Zhou Hao had actually stepped into the divine pulse realm? This wasn't good news. When she saw Lin Tian fall silent, Su Shu said, "You don't have to be too worried. I'll tell Master about this. Moreover, even though Zhou Hao isn't much, he wouldn't go so far as to kill you." Lin Tian smiled and flicked Su Shu's forehead. Naive girl. Back in Greenwind Ridge, Zhou Hao had plotted to kill him. Since the two of them had already signed a life and death contract, how could Zhou Hao show any mercy to him? Zhou Hao might not be merciless in front of the martial house, but he would definitely use some dirty tricks. Even if he didn't kill him, he would at least cripple him. Su Shu covered her forehead and gritted her teeth at Lin Tian. "What are you doing?" "Nothing," Lin Tian smiled. "I just want to tell you not to worry. After all, he has just entered the divine pulse realm." Just entered the divine pulse realm? Su Shu glared. She was worried after hearing the news, but this guy didn't seem to care at all. Even if he had just entered the divine pulse realm, he was still in the divine pulse realm. "Don't worry about it." Lin Tiandao. "You're not worried?" "What am I worried about?" Su Shu puffed up her cheeks. Lin Tian smiled. He was grateful that Su Shu was worried about him. "All right. Where are you going?" Su Shu asked. "Wild Waves Formation. I'm going there to train my body." Lin Tiandao. "Wild Waves Formation." Su Shu thought for a moment and said, "I'll go too. Let's go together." Soon, the two arrived at the Wild Waves Formation. "Little monster, you're here?" Seeing Lin Tian arrive, Luo Xiao greeted him. Lin Tian. Ever since Luo Xiao saw him using the Azure Thunder Sword art in the 3-time zone, Luo Xiao changed the way he addressed him. "Little monster" made him sweat. "Little monster?" Su Shu stared at Lin Tian curiously. Lin Tian was helpless and couldn't be bothered to say anything. After informing Luo Xiao, Lin Tian walked towards the center of the Wild Waves Formation. Su Shu followed behind him. What a troublesome formation. As soon as she entered the array, Su Shu began to mutter. Although her cultivation was at the 8th layer of the body refinement realm, she was still a girl and her body was a bit weak. Being in this wild wave array, the pressure from the enormous gravity made her feel very uncomfortable. It's normal to suffer a little on the path of martial arts. Otherwise, why would martial artists be more powerful than ordinary people? Lin Tian smiled. "If you want to get something, you have to give something." Su Shu looked at Lin Tian in surprise. "I didn't expect you to say something so philosophical." Lin Tian was speechless. In this little girl's eyes, what kind of person was he? Passing through the 2-times gravity zone, the two of them were very relaxed. There was no need to mention Lin Tian. As for Su Shu, she was already at the 8th layer of the body refinement realm, so the 2-times gravity was nothing to her. Moreover, this was not her first time here. Very quickly, the two of them walked a distance and arrived at the boundary between the 2 and 3-times gravity zone. Lin Tian walked forward, heading towards the 3-times gravity zone. "Hey, what are you doing?" Su Shu pulled him back. "What?" Lin Tian was stunned. He pointed at the 3-times gravity zone and said, "Over there." "Over there?" Su Shu stared at him. "That is the 3-times gravity zone. Without a cultivation at the 9th layer of the body refinement realm, you'll suffer for nothing. Do you have nothing better to do than to suffer?" Ever since the martial house was founded, this wild wave array had always existed. After so many years, after so many disciples, the adaptability of this wild wave array had been summed up by some people. For the 3-times gravity zone, one had to be at least at the 9th layer of the body refinement realm to enter, otherwise it would be very hard to withstand the pressure. If one tried to enter before reaching the 9th layer of the body refinement realm, it would cause great damage to one's body. "Relax, I know what I'm doing," Lin Tian Ondao said. After he finished speaking, he casually walked over. After walking a few steps, he turned around to look at Su Shu. Look, these days, he had spent several hours cultivating in this wild wave array. He had already adapted to the 3-times gravity zone. "You!" Su Shu stared at him with an expression of disbelief. If Lin Tian found it difficult to move in the 3-times gravity zone, she could barely accept it. But now, it seemed like Lin Tian had a relaxed expression. Lin Tian shrugged and said, "Do you want to come in and try?" "No." Sushu flatly refused. She had just reached the 8th layer of the body refinement realm. If she entered the 3 times gravity zone, she would definitely suffer. Lin Tian smiled and didn't mind. He began to cultivate in the 3 times gravity zone. Because Sushu was here, he didn't take out the origin returning sword from the stone ring. After all, the stone ring was too rare. According to the normal price, it would cost at least 1.5 million spirit coins. If Sushu asked, he wouldn't know how to answer. In the blink of an eye, 8 hours passed. Lin Tian and Sushu walked out of the wild wave array. On the way back to their residence, Sushu looked at Lin Tian like she was looking at a monster. With the cultivation at the 8th layer of the body refinement realm, he could actually move freely in the 3 times gravity zone of the wild wave array. This is a bit too much, but there is still a big difference between you and the divine pulse realm. If you also cultivated for 2 years, how could Zhou Hao be your opponent? Sushu curled her lips. Regarding Lin Tian's monstrous level, she refreshed herself again and again. But even so, there was still a huge gap between the body refinement realm and the divine pulse realm. Lin Tian was now at the 8th layer of the body refinement realm. If an 8th layer of the body refinement realm wanted to defeat a divine pulse realm expert, it was simply impossible. Sushu's voice was very soft, but Lin Tian could still hear it clearly. "If I cultivated for 2 years, I could crush him with a single finger," Lin Tian said. Sushu rolled her eyes. "I'm talking about you, and you're still panting." "No, I'm just speaking the truth," Lin Tian said with a smile. A long time had passed since noon. At a fork in the road, Lin Tian and Sushu parted ways. Because the inner house selection competition was in 10 days, Sushu also had to prepare. After returning to his residence, Lin Tian washed up and entered his room to rest as usual. At night, he woke up on time and went to the top pavilion to inscribe spirit-gathering runes to cultivate. Divine Pulse Realm? 10 days later, when I step into the 9th layer of the body refinement realm, I might be able to win, Lin Tian thought to himself. A cold glint flashed in Lin Tian's eyes. He took a deep breath and started to cultivate seriously. After knowing that Zhou Hao had stepped into the divine pulse realm, Lin Tian more or less felt a trace of pressure. In the next few days, he no longer headed to the Wild Waves heavy formation. Instead, he frantically inscribed spirit-gathering runes to cultivate the 4 extremes scripture. In the past, he would only use 1 spirit-gathering rune each time he cultivated. But in these few days, he activated 3 spirit-gathering runes each time. In the blink of an eye, another 6 days passed. In these 6 days, other than resting and eating, Lin Tian cultivated all the time. On this day, in the middle of the night, Lin Tian sat cross-legged at the top pavilion. Resplendent starlight shone down and spirit chi surged from all directions, completely enveloping him. It was denser than ever before. Lin Tian closed his eyes tightly and couldn't help but frown. At this moment, the pain of tempering his organs suddenly increased by several times, as if 10,000 arrows were piercing his heart. Gradually, Lin Tian couldn't help but let out a dull groan. So painful. Lin Tian gritted his teeth. As the spirit chi of heaven and earth and the rich power of stars enveloped him, another 15 minutes passed. Lin Tian's body rumbled with the sound of wind and thunder. At this moment, Lin Tian felt even more intense pain. However, he endured it. Buzz! On the surface of his body, silver light lingered and became denser. Just like that, another hour passed. Just as Lin Tian was about to be unable to endure this inhumane pain, the sound of wind and thunder in his body became even more violent. Boom! A majestic force surged and filled every corner of his body. The intense pain disappeared, and Lin Tian gasped for breath. After several breaths, he barely managed to recover. Now, every strike of his sword was comparable to a middle-level body refinement realm martial skill. It was shockingly strong. P.S. Sorry, I'm a bit stuck. The second update should be around 9 p.m. Chapter 77. Early in the morning, the sun shone on the earth. The air was fresh and the spirit energy was dense. Dong! On this day, the sound of a bell echoed throughout the Nine-Yang martial house. The sound lingered for a long time. The inner house selection had begun. In the disciples' dormitory area, Lin Tian heard the sound, and his eyes flashed. He took out the origin-restoring sword from the stone ring and tied it to his back. After informing Lin Shi, he walked towards the martial arts practice field. When he arrived at the martial arts practice field, it was already surrounded by people. Not all of these people were here to participate in the inner house selection, because participating in the inner house selection required a certain amount of qualifications. Their cultivation had to be at least at the 7th level of the body refinement realm. Just this point alone was enough to sweep away most of the disciples. At least, among the hundreds of new disciples, only 2 or 3 people were qualified to participate in the inner house selection. Therefore, most of these people were here to watch the selection process. I heard that the rewards for this inner house selection are very rich. The first place in the overall results seems to be a divine accumulation pill. After a martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement realm consumes it, they can directly enter the divine pulse realm. No way. They're willing to take out such a pill as a reward. Someone was surprised. It seems that the martial house is going all out this time. That's right. There are many geniuses among the outer house disciples this time. Naturally, the martial house will pay attention to it. It is said that other than the divine accumulation pill, there are other rich rewards that are extraordinary. However, there are only 5 spots for the inner house disciples. I don't know which 5 people will be the best this time. Many disciples gathered together in 2s and 3s. From time to time, there would be discussions. Among them, those who were not qualified to participate were envious and yearning. Those who were qualified to participate were full of anticipation and excitement. The reason for this was because there was a huge difference between the inner palace and the outer palace. Simply put, if one entered the inner palace, they would be able to obtain more cultivation resources. Entering the inner palace was also a kind of affirmation for the disciples of the martial house. Once they entered the inner palace, in the future, no matter where they went, they would be highly sought after. In the corner, Lin Tian was also startled when he heard these discussions. Divine accumulation pill? Lin Tian muttered to himself. However, to directly reach the divine vein realm from the 9th level of the refinement realm, this divine accumulation pill was truly astonishing. It was definitely more valuable than the 9 melody essence pill. Thinking about it, Lin Tian's eyes flickered. He couldn't help looking forward to it. If he could obtain the divine accumulation pill, wouldn't he be able to step into the divine vein realm? Similar to him, many disciples in the surroundings were also thinking about the divine accumulation pill. The divine accumulation pill, it can allow one to directly reach the divine vein realm from the 9th layer of the body refinement realm. It would be great if I could obtain this pill. Some people were filled with anticipation. Come on, stop daydreaming. Let's not talk about other things. But this divine accumulation pill has already been decided. Internally decided? What do you mean? Do you know that Zhou Hao? It is said that this person has already advanced to the divine vein realm. He does not even need to participate in the test and can directly enter the inner palace. As for the first place prize, the divine accumulation pill, it will naturally be his in the end. What? He has already stepped into the divine pulse realm? Many people were shocked. The Nanyang martial house had been established for hundreds of years. In the hundreds of years of history, the number of people who could reach the divine vein realm in the outer palace could be counted with one hand. How could Zhou Hao not be surprised that he had already reached the divine vein realm before entering the inner palace? Hearing this news, many disciples of the martial house widened their eyes. At this time, someone at the side raised a question. Since he has already entered the divine vein realm, wouldn't it be a waste to give the divine accumulation pill to Zhou Hao? Waste? How is that possible? Do you know the value of a divine accumulation pill? After Zhou Hao obtains the divine accumulation pill, he can take it to the E-Treasure Pavilion to auction. The transaction amount will be at least 2 million spirit coins, which is equivalent to a mid-grade artifact. A mid-grade artifact, was enough to increase a martial artist's battle power by 80%. This Zhou Hao has already entered the Divine Vein realm. Even if he does not participate in the test, the Martial House will still give the Divine Accumulation Pill to him. This is a matter of course. I believe that no disciple of the Martial House will have any objections. That is true, but I still feel that it is a waste. Wouldn't it be better if this Divine Accumulation Pill was given to another disciple at the 9th layer of the Body Refinement realm? At least for the Martial House, it is a good thing, as they can nurture another Divine Vein realm disciple. I guess the Martial House did not expect that someone could reach the Divine Vein realm before entering the Inner Palace. The reward has already been announced, so it is impossible to change it. The person who spoke rolled his eyes and said, "However, if you really feel that it is a waste, you can challenge him. As long as you win, the Divine Accumulation Pill will naturally be yours." Challenge a Divine Vein realm expert? Isn't that just asking for humiliation? I was just saying it. Besides, I am only at the 6th layer of the Body Refinement realm. I am still far from the 9th layer of the Body Refinement realm. It's good that you know. In the field, voices came out one after another. Hearing these people's words, the corner of Lin Tian's mouth rose. The day of the bet with Zhou Hao happened to be the day of the Inner Palace selection. If he defeated Zhou Hao, the Divine Accumulation Pill would be his. At this moment, there was a commotion in the crowd not far away. 2 young men walked over. The one in the lead was wearing a golden robe and had an imposing appearance. Zhou Hao. Many people were surprised and automatically opened up a path for him. The number 1 disciple of the Outer Palace, and he was also at the Divine Vein realm. Many people's faces were filled with awe. Zhou Hao walked over with another person beside him. He was wearing a green robe and had an extraordinary appearance. It was Lu Sheng. Lin Tian raised his head and looked at Zhou Hao and Lu Sheng. His eyes instantly turned cold. These 2 people were already on his blacklist. As if he felt Lin Tian's gaze, Zhou Hao looked over and said, "Brother Lin?" After pausing for a moment, Zhou Hao smiled and said, "When I saw Brother Lin being dragged away by the 100-legged beast during the Outer Palace trial, I was worried for a long time. Now that I see Brother Lin standing here safe and sound, I'm really relieved." Relieved? Lin Tianin smiled. "Why do I feel like it's more of a disappointment? How could that be? Brother Lin must be joking." Zhou Hao's expression didn't change. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhou Hao. He found that Zhou Hao's aura had indeed changed. It gave him a faint sense of oppression. He had indeed stepped into the Divine Vein realm. Many people in the surroundings noticed this and were shocked. Who is that young man with a long sword on his back? He can actually talk to that Zhou Hao. Damn, you don't even know this person? Is this person very famous? Nonsense. This person is called Lin Tian. He is a 9-star talent and ranked 1st in the new disciple assessment. Not long ago, he was ranked 2nd in the Outer Palace selection, just below Zhou Hao. At that time, he had only entered the Martial House for a month. So strong. If that's the case, won't this person be able to enter the Inner Palace in this Inner Palace selection? It's very possible. Although he is far from being comparable to Zhou Hao, he has at least a 70% chance of entering the Inner Palace. Many people were shocked. Some of the older disciples were embarrassed. A new disciple's fame actually suppressed their heads. Lin Tian naturally heard these discussions, but he didn't care at all. Tilting his head to look at Lu Sheng, Lin Tian smiled faintly and said, "Speaking of which, when we met in the Dark Forest last time, you should have obtained a lot of benefits from my traces, right?" "I don't understand what you were talking about," Lu Sheng said coldly. "Is that so?" Lin Tian said strangely. "After we met in the Dark Forest, didn't you tell the Mo family that I was in the Dark Forest? You should know that I have a grudge with the Mo family. The Mo family is trying to kill me by every means possible. If you tell the Mo family this news, you should get a handsome reward." Lu Sheng snorted. "Don't measure the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. I, Lu Sheng, am an indomitable spirit and disdain to do such a thing." The MO family going to the dark forest to kill you has nothing to do with me. Oh? How did you know that the MO family went to the dark forest to kill me? I don't think I mentioned this. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. Or is it that the MO family's patriarch went to the dark forest to kill me, and he still has to report to you? Lu Sheng? Lu Sheng was suddenly speechless, and his face became ugly. Lin Tianling smiled. Heart of a gentleman? Indomitable spirit? Staring at Lu Sheng, a murderous intent brewed in his eyes. Facing such an icy gaze, Lu Sheng could not help but tremble, and could not help but retreat. Right at this moment, in the martial arts practice field, another bell sounded. Dong! This bell sound was louder than the first. This bell sound was to summon the participants of the inner palace selection. Lin Tian looked towards the origin of the bell sound. There was a high platform there. This high platform had just been built, prepared for the inner palace disciple selection. After this bell sound, everyone here walked towards the high platform. Soon, this place became empty. Lin Tianling coldly swept a glance at Lu Sheng, turned around, and left. Brother Lin, wait a moment. Regarding this bell sound, Zhou Hao did not care much. He called out to Lin Tian and said with a faint smile, speaking of which, we set the bet battle 3 months ago. Brother Lin, you shouldn't have forgotten, right? Lin Tian stopped his footsteps, turned back to look at Zhou Hao, and narrowed his eyes slightly. After a moment, the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Of course, I remember very clearly. That's good, Zhou Hao said with a smile. Then, this battle will be set after the inner palace disciple selection is confirmed. What do you think, Brother Lin? Lin Tian stared at Zhou Hao, and after a while, the corners of his mouth became wider, but with a hint of evil. What a coincidence, we thought of the same thing. After saying this, Lin Tian turned around and walked towards a high platform. Looking at Lin Tian's back, Lu Sheng's eyes were filled with malice. This stinking brat. Too arrogant. Lu Sheng clenched his fists. Arrogant people don't live long. Why be angry with him? Zhou Hao said with a smile. Lu Sheng was stunned. Young Master Zhou. What do you mean? Zhou Hao did not answer Lu Sheng's question, and said with a smile on his face, I just checked. His current cultivation is at the 9th firmament of body refinement. What? How is that possible? Lu Sheng was shocked. He had been in the 9-yang martial house for more than a year, and now he had just reached the 8th firmament of body refinement. However, Lin Tian had only been in the martial house for 3 months, and now he had already reached the 9th firmament of body refinement. He actually surpassed him. With his current strength, he should be able to enter the inner palace. Zhou Hao's face was still smiling. Lu Sheng put away his surprise and looked at the smile on Zhou Hao's face. He revealed a puzzled expression and carefully said, Young Master Zhou, that I don't understand. That Lin Tian being able to enter the inner palace is not a good thing. Young Master Zhou, why do you look so happy? Chapter 78. Lu Sheng was startled, but he quickly understood. He was pleasantly surprised at first, but then his expression turned sinister. Lu Sheng understood Zhou Hao's words. After Lin Tian obtained the inner palace spot, it would be time for him to duel with Zhou Hao. The two had already signed a life and death contract 3 months ago. In the duel, whether Zhou Hao crippled Lin Tian or killed Lin Tian, it would be a very normal thing to do. Now that Zhou Hao was in the divine vein realm, he could easily do either. Just as he was about to enter the inner palace, his status would increase, and his future would be wide and smooth. But if at this time his martial physique was crippled in the duel, or even died in the duel, how regretful would that be? Falling from heaven to hell is far more despairing than falling directly to hell. Lu Sheng laughed sinisterly. As expected of young Master Zhou, Zhou Hao's eyes were cold. You dare to approach the person I fancy. You're courting death. When he was in Greenwind Ridge, he had schemed to frame Lin Tian. That sword strike had already completely torn off all pretenses with Lin Tian. When he was in front of others, he would conceal it a little, but in front of his trusted aide, Lu Sheng, he no longer concealed anything. On the high platform of the martial arts practice field, almost all the disciples were gathered here. On this day, the inner palace election had begun. Not only were all the disciples from the outer palace here, even some from the inner palace had rushed here to personally watch. After all, after the inner palace election, 5 people from the outer palace would enter the inner palace to cultivate. These 5 people would be their future competitors, so there was no harm in coming early to watch. Below the high platform, the crowd was slightly excited, and from time to time, there would be noises. Quiet! A cold shout came from the high platform, and as this voice fell, the crowd quickly quieted down. The one who spoke was a middle-aged man. This person glanced at the disciples and then continued, "The inner palace election. I won't say anything unnecessary. I will only talk about the rules. First, those who have reached the 7th level of body refinement can participate in the selection. Second, all those who have the qualifications to enter the inner martial cave, and those who can last for 2 hours in the cave are qualified. Third, all those who have passed the inner palace grotto will simultaneously participate in an indiscriminate mixed battle on this high platform. The final 4 winners will be able to enter the inner palace. As for the overall ranking of the 4, it will be determined by the ranking of the inner martial cave's assessment. The ranking of the inner martial cave will be recorded by the ranking stone outside the cave." After pausing for a moment, the middle-aged man said, "The reason why the 4 of you are left behind is because there is already one person in the outer palace who has reached the divine vein realm. He doesn't need to participate in the assessment and will be confirmed as the overall first place. Of course, if any of the 4 winners are unconvinced, they can issue a challenge to that person. If they win, the first place will change. In addition, for the sake of fairness, all participating disciples are only allowed to use ordinary weapons throughout the entire process." As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the crowd went into an uproar. Indeed, the rumors are true. Someone has stepped into the divine vein realm. To be able to step into the divine vein realm while still in the outer palace, this is terrifying. It is said that the final 4 victors can challenge anyone who is unconvinced. However, who would be so idiotic as to challenge a divine vein realm expert with a body refinement realm cultivation? Exactly. In other words, this selection is only a competition for the 2nd to 5th spots. Below the high platform, many disciples were whispering. At this moment, a dry cough was heard. On the high platform, someone walked out. It was the Martial House's elder, Mu Qing. The inner palace selection was an important day, so the Martial House's elders would naturally be present. Mu Qing's expression was calm as he looked at the disciples and said, "Everyone, I wish you all the best." As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Qing went straight to the main topic. "Now, the selection begins. All qualified disciples, head to the inner martial cave." "Yes, Elder." Below the high platform, dozens of disciples responded in unison. There were close to 300 disciples in the 9 Yang Martial House's outer palace, and a total of 49 disciples had reached the 7th level of body refinement realm. Soon, these 49 disciples were led by the middle-aged man to the so-called inner martial cave. The inner martial cave was a huge mountain cave. Inside, there was a comprehensive formation array. The formation array covered an area of about a few hundred feet. Looking at the inner martial cave, there was a strange stone that was about 10 feet tall. This must be the inner martial cave's ranking stone. It can actually analyze the results of the disciples in the inner martial cave and record their rankings. Truly amazing. Lin Tian thought to himself. The inner martial cave was rumored to be composed of a small violent wave-heavy array and a huge illusory killing array. The violent wave-heavy array naturally pressured the disciples who entered, suppressing their strength and speed. As for the illusory killing array, it would create some demonic beasts to attack the disciples. Of course, the illusory killing array would not actually kill the disciples who entered. However, once the disciples were killed, they would be automatically sent out of the inner martial cave by the array. After that, the ranking stone would use the disciples' time in the inner martial cave, as well as the level and number of demonic beasts they killed as a benchmark to rank them. Looking at the inner martial cave in front of them, many disciples were surprised, especially the 49 outer palace disciples who participated in the selection. Many of them clenched their fists. Hey! Lin Tian was patted by someone, and Su Shu appeared beside him. Lin Tian looked at Su Shu and was speechless. You really came to join in the fun? Su Shu was currently at the 8th heavenly layer of body refinement, so she indeed had the qualifications to participate in the inner palace selections. However, Lin Tian knew that the reason this little girl participated in the inner palace selections was because she wanted to fight for Mu Qing's glory, just like last time during the outer palace ranking trial. As for the so-called cultivation resources of the inner palace, as well as the glory and status that came with being an inner palace disciple, Su Shu didn't care. After all, she was Mu Qing's last disciple. Just this point alone was enough for her to be proud of. In terms of status, how could an inner palace disciple compare to a martial house elder's last disciple? What do you mean by joining in the fun? Don't you know how to speak properly? Su Shu ground her teeth. Lin Tian. At this moment, the middle-aged man coughed and looked at the crowd of disciples. Now, you can enter. After entering the inner martial cave, those who can last for 2 hours will be considered to have passed this round of assessment. Otherwise, those who are teleported out within 2 hours will be considered to have failed. The middle-aged man swept his gaze over the dozens of disciples and raised his voice. Everyone enter? Yes. The disciples responded once again. There was only one door in the inner martial cave. Looking from afar, the door flickered with brilliance, giving people a sense of mystery. Let's go, Su Shu said. Lin Tian nodded and followed Su Shu as they slowly walked in. As soon as he stepped into the inner martial cave, Lin Tian suddenly felt his vision darken. Then, a dim light flickered around him. Slightly stunned, Lin Tian realized that Su Shu, who came in with him, had disappeared. He was the only one left in all directions. In this space, he could not see anyone else, nor could he see the scene outside the inner martial cave. Buzz! Suddenly the space changed again. Lin Tian suddenly felt his body sink. Lin Tian's heart skipped a beat. The gravity had increased. Slightly sensing, Lin Tian quickly realized that this gravity was between 2 and 3 times the normal gravity. For the current him, it was nothing. Under this gravity, he could move freely. Of course, even so, his combat power would still be suppressed. After all, this was not the outside world. Following a roar, a demonic beast gradually condensed in front of him. This is the demonic beast formed by the illusory killing array? Lin Tian whispered. Looking at this demonic beast, Lin Tianyi determined its level. It was an early 2nd level demonic beast, comparable to the 4th level of the refinement realm. The demonic beast roared and rushed towards Lin Tian. This illusory killing array is really realistic. Lin Tian was shocked. When the demonic beast rushed over, he could even feel its breathing. It was as if this demonic beast was a real entity. While he was thinking, the demonic beast had already rushed in front of him. Without hesitation, Lin Tian raised his sword and cut it in half. The long sword in his hand was given to him by the martial house before the assessment. It was an ordinary long sword. The other disciples who participated in the assessment were also given weapons of the same level. After cutting down this demonic beast, Lin Tian stood still and did not move. In the next moment, another roar sounded. This time, a total of 5 demonic beasts condensed. Moreover, these 5 demonic beasts were all at the peak of the 2nd level, comparable to the 6th level of the refinement realm. Roar! With a loud roar, the 5 demonic beasts surrounded Lin Tian. However, Lin Tian's current strength was extremely strong. With his cultivation at the 9th level of the refinement realm, how could he care about a few 2nd-level demonic beasts? Seeing the 5 demonic beasts rushing over, Lin Tian did not move and still casually swung his sword. Pooh! 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 In the blink of an eye, the 5 demonic beasts were completely killed. However, everything did not end there. After Lin Tian killed these 5 2nd-level demonic beasts, more demonic beasts condensed out of thin air. There were a total of 10 demonic beasts, each of them at the peak of the 2nd level, and all of them were extremely ferocious. In this regard, Lin Tian's expression was very calm. His hand raised, and his sword fell. Pooh! 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 Blood splashed in this dark space. Soon, the 10 demonic beasts were killed one by one. It seems that in the inner martial cave, the demonic beasts formed by the illusionary killing array will slowly increase in level and quantity. This will work together with the wild wave array to deplete the true essence of the examinee. In the end, the examinee will either be killed due to exhaustion of true essence or insufficient strength. In short, they will all die and then be transported out. Lin Tian thought to himself. However, just based on the demonic beast level, there should not be any 4th level demonic beasts. The inner martial cave was set up to select inner martial disciples from the outer martial cave. The outer martial disciples were all at the refinement realm, so naturally, there would not be any 4th level demonic beasts in the inner martial cave. As for people like Zhou Hao who had reached the divine pulse realm in the outer martial cave, these people did not need to participate in the assessment and could directly enter the inner martial cave. Just as Lin Tian finished thinking, an even more shocking roar sounded. In front of him, a demonic beast covered in scales appeared. Its eyes were blood red, and its evil aura was shocking. This was a middle-level 3rd level demonic beast, comparable to the 8th level of the refinement realm. As expected, Lin Tian whispered. Without hesitation, Lin Tian waved the long sword in his hand and rushed out like lightning, slashing towards the demonic beast's throat. Chapter 79. Seeing Lin Tian rushing towards it, the demonic beast roared, and a sharp barb extended from its tail towards Lin Tian. However, Lin Tian's speed was too fast. In a flash, he disappeared, and the long sword in his hand slashed through the demonic beast's throat. Puff! The demonic beast's head flew out, and blood gushed out. Killing a mid-level level 3 demonic beast in one move was considered normal. The current Lin Tian had such strength. Roar! Angry roars sounded again. This time, more than 10 mid-level level 3 demonic beasts appeared. Lin Tian rushed into the group of demonic beasts and flipped the long sword in his hand. In this area where the gravity was close to 2.5 times, the long sword swung freely. Streaks of sword chi crisscrossed, and each sword accurately pierced the throat of a demonic beast. A one-hit kill. It saved time and effort. Because the inner martial cave also had the wild waves heavy array, the consumption of true origin energy was much faster than the outside world. Lin Tian knew this very well. Therefore, when he attacked the demonic beasts, his movements were very skillful. He would not waste his energy if he could save it. Until now, he had been attacking with ordinary sword moves and did not use any martial arts techniques. Soon, Lin Tian killed more than 10 mid-level level 3 demonic beasts. The area was temporarily quiet. However, it was only for a moment. After about a few breaths, along with a fierce roar, a ghost-like figure appeared in front of Lin Tian. This figure was wrapped in a gray robe and looked like the legendary ghost. It made one's scalp tingle. Peak level 3 demonic beast, red-faced ghost. We meet again? Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. The red-faced ghost let out a screeching sound like glass rubbing against each other. Its eyes were blood red like a ghost's. With a roar, it charged towards Lin Tian. It was clearly just an illusion, but Lin Tian felt a wave of oppressive cold air. Crouching down slightly, Lin Tian's eyes were like torches as he stared at the red-faced ghost's throat. The illusionary killing array was different from the illusionary realm during the entrance exam. Although both were illusions, there were still some differences. The illusions in the illusionary killing array could only scare people. If one had a firm will and stood still, all the illusions would disappear. However, the illusionary killing array was different. If one did not put up any resistance, they would only be killed and transported out of the inner martial cave. Finally, the red-faced ghost approached and swiped at Lin Tian with its claws. It was also at this moment that Lin Tian moved. His body rushed out like lightning. Swish! With a light sound, Lin Tian and the red-faced ghost brushed past each other. Immediately, The red-faced ghost let out a blood-curdling scream as his throat was pierced by a sword. With a bang, he fell into a pool of blood. The red-faced ghost's weakness was the throat. This was something that Lin Tian already knew back in the Green Wind Ridge. Now that his cultivation had reached the 9th level of the body refinement realm, he didn't need to fear the red-faced ghost in a direct battle, not to mention the red-faced ghost's sword of lightning. Rumble! A loud shaking sound rang out, and the entire space started to vibrate. Immediately, several peak grade 3 demonic beasts appeared in front of Lin Tian. "Come on," Lin Tian said in a deep voice. After saying that, Lin Tian took a deep breath. Immediately, his sword moved and stabbed in all directions. Unknowingly, more than half an hour had passed. During this period of time, there were disciples who were transported out of the inner martial cave. Most of these people who were transported out had pale faces. Immediately after, they disappeared into the crowd. Almost all of these people were killed by the demonic beasts in the inner martial cave before being transported out. Although they didn't really die, they still experienced the feeling of death. How many of them wouldn't be afraid? Of course, there were some brave people among them. Although their faces were pale, they weren't afraid. It's too difficult. Fighting in there feels like carrying a huge rock. No, it feels like my whole body is filled with mercury. Even waving my hand is troublesome. Moreover, the demonic beasts keep jumping out. It's really so difficult. Someone complained. These people were mostly old disciples, and their cultivations were at the 7th level of the refinement realm. Although they had tempered themselves in the wild waves heavy array, it was only in the 2 times gravity zone. However, the gravity in the inner martial cave was much stronger than the 2 times gravity zone. Suddenly entering it, these people were not used to it. Adding on the fact that these people had never truly battled under the multiple times gravity before, it was very difficult for these people to endure for more than 2 hours in the inner martial cave. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. In 2 hours, out of the 49 disciples who entered the inner martial cave, 23 of them were transported out. Out of 49 people who entered, 26 passed. Not bad. Mu Qing nodded. Shi Dong smiled. I wonder how long that little guy can last. I'm really looking forward to it. Same. Mu Qing smiled. The two of them stood in the distance and looked in the direction of the inner martial cave. From the inner martial cave, the participating disciples could not see the outside world. It was the same for the outside world. They could not see the scene inside the inner martial cave. Mu Qing and Shi Dong stood together and stared in the direction of the inner martial cave's main entrance. Once a disciple was killed in the inner martial cave, they would be transported out from the main entrance. Other than Mu Qing and Shi Dong, there were also people watching from all directions. He passed the second round. Zhou Hao had a smile on his face. However, under this smile, there was a sinister light. At this moment, Lin Tian was facing 5 peak 3rd grade demonic beasts. These demonic beasts were not weaker than the red-faced ghost. He squatted down slightly, and the long sword in his hand shook. He finally used the power of a martial technique. Shocking Wind Sword. With one slash, a dense sword aura appeared. Pooh! 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 The 5 peak 3rd grade demonic beasts were killed and fell into a pool of blood. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. In the inner martial cave, this slash consumed a lot more true origin than in the outside world. Narrowing his eyes, Lin Tian took a deep breath and stood still with his sword in his hand. I have to save more energy and true origin, Lin Tian thought to himself. With a buzz, the surrounding space trembled. This time a total of 10 peak 3rd grade demonic beasts appeared. Outside the inner martial cave, one disciple after another was teleported out. 3.5 hours had passed. Out of the 26 people who passed, 17 have been teleported out. Now there are only 9 people left. Mu Qing said, Your precious disciple is still inside. She must have given you some face, right? Shi Dong laughed. Mu Qing was a little helpless. What face? I'm satisfied as long as this girl is quiet. As the two of them chatted and laughed, another 5 people were teleported out. At this moment, there were only 4 people left in the inner martial cave. Ah! A crisp sound was heard. Sushu was teleported out. She grimaced and shrunk her neck. Obviously, she was shocked. Seeing this scene, Dong couldn't help but laugh. This girl is looking for trouble. It doesn't feel good to be killed by demonic beasts. Mu Qing shook his head and said, "No matter what this girl is here for, there's no harm in entering once." "That's true." Dong nodded. Time continued to move forward. Soon, the fourth last person was teleported out. There are only 3 people left. Hua Yongchang, the fourth outer house, Rong Xiu, and that Lin Tian. Around them, the mentors were discussing. Speaking of which, forget about Hua Yongchang and Rong Xiu. They both cultivated in the outer house for 2 years. However, this Lin Tian is really a monster. In such a short time, he actually ranked second in the outer house and lasted so long in the inner martial cave. 9-star talent. How can he not be a monster? That's true. After all, he's a 9-star talent. Many people nodded. Many people stared in the direction of the inner martial cave. Soon, Rong Xiu and Hua Yongchang were teleported out. There's only one person left. Someone whispered. At this moment, 4 hours had passed since the disciples entered the inner martial cave. That Lin Tian, he's still inside, some mentors said. Sushu stared in the direction of the inner martial cave and curled her lips. What a little monster. Lin Tian had only entered the martial house for 3 months, yet he had already reached his current level. He had completely surpassed her, causing her to feel very depressed. In the distance, Dong and Mu Qing stared ahead and narrowed their eyes slightly. Dong, how long do you think that kid can last? Mu Qing asked. Dong thought for a moment. With that little guy's talent and strength, he should be able to last for another hour. Mu Qing shook his head and said, I have a feeling that he can last longer. Longer? It can't be. Dong was surprised. Just now, he had said that Lin Tian would be able to hold on for another hour because he had a good impression of Lin Tian, so he had estimated a bit more time. He never thought that Mu Qing would actually say that Lin Tian would be able to hold on for even longer. I'm not sure. I just have a feeling. Let's wait and see. Mu Qing said. Inside the inner martial cave, Lin Tian was surrounded by 11 peak rank 3 demonic beasts. His breathing was slightly chaotic. In these 2 hours, he had killed a lot of monster beasts. Because he was fighting under 5 times the gravity, the true essence in his body was severely depleted. He had already consumed more than half of it, but even so, his expression was still calm and steady. Come! Staring at the 11 peak rank 3 demonic beasts, Lin Tian said in a deep voice. As if they felt Lin Tian's provocation, the 11 peak rank 3 demonic beasts roared and charged at him in anger. Lin Tian took a deep breath and dodged the charge of a rank 3 demonic beast. His right hand turned around and pierced through the demonic beast's forehead. At the same time, he squatted down and dodged the attack of another demonic beast. His right leg kicked out, and the demonic beast that was charging at him was sent flying. Its throat was crushed and it died instantly. Azure Thunder Sword Art. With a low shout, Lin Tian waved his right hand, and a thunderous sword roar resounded in all directions. The Azure Thunder Sword Art was extremely overbearing. Once the sword was drawn, it would take a life. Pooh! 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 The sword in Lin Tian's hand seemed to have turned into a lightning beam. Even his movements became faster. Every time he waved his sword, a demonic beast would die under his sword. Soon, the 11 demonic beasts were all killed. However, with a fierce roar, more demonic beasts appeared. Lin Tian did not dodge and face them head-on. Demonic beasts and human martial artists were different after all. Generally speaking, human martial artists were stronger than demonic beasts of the same level. After all, human martial artists were far more intelligent than demonic beasts. In addition, the demonic beasts created by the illusionary killing array were weaker than the actual demonic beasts. That was why Lin Tian could last until now and continuously kill so many rank 3 demonic beasts. Of course, to say that human martial artists were stronger than demonic beasts was only applicable to demonic beasts that had not transformed. It was different for demonic beasts that had successfully transformed. Demonic beasts that had successfully transformed were mostly stronger than human martial artists of the same level. Moreover, their strength was not just by a little bit. Very quickly, another hour passed. After an hour, Lin Tian was still in the inner martial cave and had not been sent out. Staring ahead, Dong was a little surprised. How is it? Like I said, Mu Qing smiled. Dong shook his head and smiled bitterly in front of Lin Tian. Time passed by minute. Soon, another hour had passed. At this moment, outside the inner martial cave, everyone was shocked, including Zhou Hao, who was not far away. 8 hours had passed, and Lin Tian was still in the inner martial cave. How is it possible? At that time, there were many disciples in the 9th level body refinement realm who entered the inner martial cave, but they only lasted for 4 hours at most. Even the martial arts maniac MOG was no exception. But this Lin Tian is still inside. Some mentors were shocked. Chapter 80. 8 hours had passed, and Lin Tian was still in the inner martial cave. The martial house's record has been broken again. Dong smiled bitterly. Since the establishment of the 9-Yang martial house, Lin Tian was the first person with 9-star talent, the first person to stay in the wild waves formation for 12 hours, the first person to reach the 9th level of body refinement after 3 months in the martial house, and the first person to last 8 hours in the inner martial cave with a 9th level of body refinement. This series of records made Dong speechless. A complete monster. Mu Qing sighed. Outside the inner martial cave, everyone was shocked. Those who came to watch were all dumbfounded, including some of the geniuses from the inner martial house. In the distance, behind a rockery, stood a few experts from the inner martial house. At this moment, their faces were somewhat dignified. This last person is called Lin Tian? That's right. 9-star talent. The first time he entered the Wild Waves formation, he lasted for 12 hours. The first time he participated in the Outer Palace trial, he was ranked 2nd. After entering the Inner Palace for 3 months, he reached the 9th layer of the body refinement realm, and he has already been in the inner martial cave for 8 hours. This Lin Tian will definitely be able to enter the inner martial house, and he will definitely be a strong opponent. The voices of the inner martial house disciples were low. At this moment, if someone were to stand beside these people, they would feel that these people were all in the divine vein realm. Their auras were incomparably condensed, and they were much stronger than Zhou Hao, who had just entered the divine vein realm. At this moment, in the inner martial cave, Lin Tian was gasping for breath. Looking at the dozens of 3rd-level peak demonic beasts surrounding him, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. This was equivalent to dozens of 9th-level body refinement experts. Dozens of demonic beasts stood together. Their eyes were either blood red or demonic green, and they all gave people a sinister feeling. These monstrous beasts all had a terrifying aura around them. Especially when several dozen monstrous beasts were gathered together, that aura was even stronger and more terrifying. A normal 9th layer body refinement cultivator would have already begun to feel fear before they even started fighting. Lin Tian took a deep breath, took a sword stance, and stared at his surroundings. Only 10% of true essence left. I can't hold on much longer, Lin Tian thought. A ferocious roar rang out, and the demonic beast closest to him rushed over. This was a 9-reason ape, and it was 20 feet tall. Its entire body was covered in thick white fur, and the fangs in its mouth were pointing upwards, giving people a sinister feeling. As the 9-earthquake ape rushed over, the entire space shook. It was obvious how strong the 9-earthquake ape was. With another roar, the 9-earthquake ape swiped its claw at Lin Tian. With only 10% of his true essence left, Lin Tian became even more serious. His feet moved, and after dodging the 9-earthquake ape's attack, he took advantage of the momentum and leaped forward, stabbing the long sword in his hand into the 9-earthquake ape's throat. Pooh! As the sword was pulled out, a stream of blood splattered out. There was a soft sound in the air, and a tail covered in scales whipped over, bringing with it the sound of wind. Lin Tian blocked with the long sword in his hand. With a clang, his entire body was sent flying. Immediately after, another peak level 3 demonic beast rushed over from behind him. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at him. Looking at the sharp teeth in this demonic beast's mouth, it was estimated that even an elephant would be bitten to pieces. At this moment, Lin Tian was in the air. With a stomp of his right foot, he suddenly changed direction in the air. The second stage of the yin-yang steps. Pooh! Avoiding the demonic beast's mouth, Lin Tian was extremely calm. He stabbed the sword into the demonic beast's heart. The demonic beast screamed and fell into a pool of blood with a bang. Landing on the ground, Lin Tian panted even more heavily. His true essence was almost exhausted. Under the 2.5 times gravity, he felt that his movements were beginning to slow down, and the long sword in his hand had unknowingly become incomparably heavy. The demonic beasts around him did not give him time to rest. Dozens of demonic beasts rushed over together, and the shocking murderous aura intertwined together. It was frightening. Lin Tian gritted his teeth and flashed among the demonic beasts, dodging their attacks again and again. Pooh! In a flash, the long sword in his hand cut open the abdomen of an iron armor bull, and blood spilled out like rain. At this moment, more attacks came from all directions. Sharp claws, spiked tails, bloody mouth. Dozens of demonic beasts attacked together. Even if Lin Tian was extremely powerful, he was still somewhat exhausted. Swish! The sound of air breaking rang out, and a demonic tail covered in black barbs whipped over, instantly approaching. Oh no! Lin Tian's expression changed. Facing the concentrated attacks, it was difficult for him to dodge this attack. With a bang, the demonic tail covered in black barbs landed on his back. Instantly, Lin Tian felt a strong force on his back, and he could not help but cough out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, he felt a burning pain on his back. His skin and flesh had already split open, and even his bones had cracks. As expected of a peak level 3 demonic beast, its strength is boundless. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Just as he was thinking to himself, all the demonic beasts swarmed over again. A giant earth bear roared, and its claws were eerie as it clawed at Lin Tian. A fan-can demonic beast covered in iron armor charged over ferociously. 100 whisker spiders charged over, and their 2 forelegs were emitting cold light. Lin Tian smiled bitterly. This battle formation was really spectacular. Even a Divine Pulse Realm expert would be frightened, right? Anyway, it's a trial. Come on! Lin Tian shouted. Even though there were many demonic beasts, and even though the murderous aura was strong, Lin Tian was fearless. If he was even afraid of illusions, then how could he advance in martial arts? Kill! With a cold shout, Lin Tian rushed over with his long sword. Sword light flashed, and at the end, Lin Tian performed the Azure Thunder Sword art. A casual slash could bring out waves of thunderous sounds, and it was shockingly powerful. However, during this process, Lin Tian's body was also wounded by the demonic beasts. Soon, his entire body was dyed red with blood, and he looked very miserable. It's been 8 hours, and that little guy still hasn't come out? How long can he last? Mu Qing's heart was trembling. I don't know. Shi Dong shook his head, and his eyes were filled with radiance. However, we really got to treasure this time. Not only is he a 9-star talent, but his other aspects can also be described as monstrous. Even in the entire Northern Flame Nation, he is a rare genius. For the Martial House to have such a disciple, the Empire will reward him with abundant cultivation resources. Perhaps they will even give him a high-grade artifact. Now that you mention it, it's true, Mu Qing said. The Nanyang Martial House was established by the Northern Flame Empire to select and nurture martial arts geniuses for the Empire. Now that such a monstrous disciple had appeared in the Nanyang Martial House, the Empire's imperial family would naturally be happy if they knew about it. This was also a great achievement for the Martial House. When Lin Tian was recruited into the Imperial Martial Institution in the Imperial City, The Empire would definitely reward the Marshall House. Just as the two of them were still discussing, the light door outside the inner Marshall cave shook, and a figure was thrown out, landing steadily on a platform outside the cave. "It's Lin Tian. He's out," Sherdong said. Seeing Lin Tian come out, everyone in this place first heaved a long sigh of relief. Then, they were shocked. 8.5 hours. This Lin Tian is obviously a new student, only 16 years old. He actually reached the 9th level of body refinement 3 months after entering the Marshall House, and lasted 8.5 hours in the inner Marshall Cave. He is simply a monster. Heaven-defying. Many people could only smile bitterly after recovering from their shock. Not far away, Lu Sheng and Zhou Hao stood together, and their faces were ugly. "This little bastard. What's the rush?" Zhou Hao also stared at Lin Tian's direction and smiled. Now, the more halos above his head, the more miserable his fall will be. Lu Sheng was stunned, and then his eyes flashed. Young Master Zhou is right. No matter how monstrous Lin Tian was, he was only in the body refinement realm. How could he be a match for a divine vein realm expert? Soon, the battle with Zhou Hao would be Lin Tian's purgatory stage. Thinking of this, Lu Sheng couldn't help but laugh. On the platform outside the inner Marshall Cave, Lin Tian had already woken up. In the end, he was besieged by dozens of peak level 3 demonic beasts. After using all his strength to kill 9 demonic beasts, he finally exhausted his true essence and was pierced by dozens of spikes from the peak level 3 demonic beast 100-feeler spider. After dying, he was sent out. "The feeling of death is really terrible," Lin Tian secretly said. His face was slightly pale. Although the illusory killing array was an illusory killing array, the feeling of death was incomparably clear. Thinking back, even he couldn't help but tremble. However, this also made Lin Tian's eyes more determined. The feeling of death, he didn't want to experience it a second time. Therefore, he had to work hard to become stronger. "Lin Tian," Su Shu ran over. Lin Tian smiled and stood up from the ground. "How do you feel?" Su Shu asked. "Not bad, just a little tired." Lin Tian smiled. "You've been fighting for 8.5 hours, and you're only a little tired?" Su Shu was surprised and speechless. She said, "Speaking of which, how did you hold on for 8.5 hours?" Lin Tian thought for a moment and joked, "Maybe it's because of my good character." "Screw you." Su Shu glanced at Lin Tianyi, then took out a pill from her arms and handed it over. "This is an essence recovery pill. Quickly swallow it and recover your true essence." The essence recovery pill had the same effect as the true essence pill. They both helped martial artists quickly recover their true essence. However, the essence recovery pill's effect couldn't be compared to the true essence pill. After all, the essence recovery pill was worth dozens of spirit coins each. One essence recovery pill was enough for an ordinary family to live for several years. Of course, the essence recovery pill was only effective for martial artists below the divine pulse realm. It was also effective for martial artists above the divine pulse realm, but the effect wasn't that great. The Marshall House also provides essence recovery pills to disciples. Lin Tian was quite surprised. Su Shu rolled her eyes. The last round of the Battle Royale is about to begin. In the inner Marshall Cave, almost everyone has exhausted their true essence. It will take at least 2 to 4 hours for them to recover naturally. How can the elders wait that long? If this drags on, I reckon that the last battle will be delayed until tomorrow. Lin Tian suddenly understood. That's true. Thinking about it, for the Marshall House, dozens of spirit coins were nothing. Chapter 81. After about a quarter of an hour, Lin Tian felt that the true essence in his body had become abundant, and he had completely recovered. The effect of this rejuvenation pill is really good, Lin Tian whispered. At this moment, the middle-aged man in charge of the inner house selection coughed. Qualified people Lin Tian, Hua Yongchang, Rong Xiu. The middle-aged man read out 25 names in a row. Everyone, gather on the high platform. Lin Tian was surprised that Sushu's name was not among the 25 people. You didn't pass the Inner Martial Caves assessment? That shouldn't be. Lin Tian asked Sushu. Of course I passed. I was the fourth last person to be sent out. Sushu snorted. Then why? Lin Tian was even more curious. Sushu said, I forfeited the third round of the battle royale. Forfeited? Lin Tian said strangely. You're not going to join in the fun? Hey, how can you say that? Sushu ground her teeth, then snorted and said, After all, I have an elder as my teacher. I was able to hold on for nearly 2 hours in the Inner Martial Cave, which can be considered as bringing honor to that old man. Therefore, I don't want to compete with others for resources in the Inner Martial Cave. Moreover, I don't like the various fights in the Martial House. Lin Tian blushed with shame. You're talking as if you're sure to win and enter the Inner House. What did you say? Sushu said angrily. I said you're very noble, always thinking of others. Lin Tian changed his words. That's more like it. Sushu snorted. Okay, go. Lin Tian nodded and walked towards the high platform. Soon, Lin Tian went up the high platform with the others. The high platform was very wide and square, about a few hundred square meters, enough to accommodate 200 people at the same time. A mere 25 people naturally wouldn't have the slightest problem. At this moment, dozens of people were standing on the high platform, and they were somewhat vigilant against each other. Next would be a battle royale, and everyone else would be their enemy. Lin Tian stood on the high platform and could even hear the heavy breathing of others. You must be very nervous, Lin Tian thought. At this moment, everyone was ready, and they were only waiting for the middle-aged man to give the order before the final chaotic battle would begin. Below the high platform, hundreds of disciples stared at the 25 people on the platform. 25 people. In the end, 4 people will stand on the stage. I wonder which 4 people will win in the end. That Lin Tian is definitely not a problem. That's right. There's also that Hua Yongchang and Rong Xiao. Those 2 aren't bad either. They should be able to win. It's said that the 2 of them have been bitterly cultivating this month and have already reached the 9th body refinement layer. As for that Sushu, she obviously had the chance to enter the inner mansion, but she actually gave up. It's quite strange. What's so strange about that? Miss Su was Elder Mu Qing's last disciple. Even if she didn't enter the inner palace, she wouldn't lack cultivation resources. At this time, Miss Su gave up and did not compete with the other 25 people to enter the inner palace. She should be worthy of our respect. You're right. Speaking of which, that Zhang Feng is a pity. If he wasn't killed by the Greenwind Ridge's demonic beasts, he should have reached the 9th body refinement layer. After all, he was at the peak of the 8th body refinement layer and was ranked 3rd in the outer palace. Yes, it's a pity. The Greenwind Ridge has become more and more restless recently. We have to be careful. Yes, many people discussed. On the high platform, Lin Tian heard these people's voices and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Zhang Feng was killed by him, but in the end he was really killed by a demonic beast. Of course, this was also because Zhang Feng was only an ordinary disciple. If an ordinary disciple died in the Greenwind Ridge, the Martial House wouldn't care. If he died, he died. In Sushu's words, if he was killed by a demonic beast in the Greenwind Ridge, it only meant that he was very weak. If the Martial House even cared about this, then they would be the parents of these disciples. A dry cough came from the corner of the high platform. Everyone followed the sound, and their eyes fell on the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at the 25 people on the high platform, those who lose their ability to fight and fall to the ground, or those who are thrown out of the stage, are considered to have lost. After a slight pause, the middle-aged man shouted, "Begin!" After saying this, the middle-aged man jumped off the high platform. In an instant, under the high platform, everyone's eyes lit up as they stared at the 25 people. Kong! The sound of a sword rang out, incomparably ear-piercing. Among the 25 people, one of them brandished his sword and actually attacked Lin Tian. Such a scene made many people under the stage reveal a strange expression. Who is this person? Is he crazy? Zhao Lin, ranked 6th in the outer palace, peak of the 8th layer of the body refinement realm. This Why is he attacking that evildoer Lin? Does he want to challenge the strong? But to do this at this time, isn't it too unwise? Many people were puzzled. Lin Tian's strength was obvious to all. He was at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, second in the outer house. He was definitely stronger than Zhao Lin by more than one level. But at this moment, Zhao Lin did not even think about attacking Lin Tian, which made many people puzzled. However, in the next moment, something even more shocking happened. Along with the sound of weapons clashing, more and more people made their move. Unexpectedly, like Zhao Lin, all of them attacked Lin Tian, as if they had already discussed this beforehand. What is going on? Outer House 7th Yang Zheng, 8th Zhou Qi, and the others, why are they all? What is going on? Hundreds of people widened their eyes. Not only were these people puzzled, even Mu Qing and Sherdong were frowning. Su Shu was even more furious. At this moment, on the high platform, everyone was attacking Lin Tian without mercy. Why are these people like this? This is too much, a new disciple angrily said. Among the 25 people, Lin Tian was the only new disciple. After entering the martial house for 3 months, Lin Tian was able to reach this step. This was not only Lin Tian's glory, but also the glory of the other new disciples. At this moment, seeing Lin Tian being besieged by a group of senior disciples, many of the new disciples were enraged. A cold snort came from the side. This is how a battle royale is. How is this too much? Someone is too arrogant and doesn't know how to control himself. I'm afraid he has incurred the wrath of the heavens. It's better to keep a low profile. That's right. A few senior disciples gathered together and spoke in a strange tone. Lin Tian had only entered the martial house for 3 months. He was obviously a new disciple, but he had overshadowed all the senior disciples except for Zhou Hao. This naturally made many of the senior disciples unhappy. Some of the new disciples were angry, but in the end, they could only be angry but did not dare to say anything. They were not Lin Tian. Facing the senior disciples, they did not have the strength to challenge them. Not far away, Zhou Hao and Lu Sheng stood together, looking forward. That's really surprising, Lin Yun said with a smile. Zhou Hao had a smile on his face. Lu Sheng coldly said, "This little bastard is obviously a new disciple, but his limelight is too strong. It should be that all the senior disciples are unhappy." Lu Sheng also had the qualifications to participate in the inner house selection, but because he knew that his strength was not enough to enter the inner house, he did not participate. Further away, behind the rockery, a few inner mansion disciples were gathered together, all of them frowning. A little shameless. That Lin Tian is very strong, but being besieged by more than 20 people, I'm afraid he is in danger. The chance of him standing on the stage is less than 20%. What a pity. Several inner house disciples shook their heads. There were a total of 25 people on the stage, and at this moment, all of them were attacking Lin Tian. Most of these 25 people were at the 8th layer of body refinement, and there were even Rong Xiu and Hua Yongchang who were at the 9th layer of body refinement. Rong Xiu was holding a long spear, waving it around like a rainbow. Hua Yongchang was holding a halberd, and his momentum was even stronger than Rong Xiu's. Lin Tian frowned and flashed between the attacks of dozens of people. Dozens of people besieging him. He always felt that it was a little strange. Attack! A loud shout rang out. Rong Xiu's expression was cold, and his eyes flashed. He jumped up, and his long spear fiercely swung down. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly, and the long sword in his hand met the attack. Clang! A loud sound rang out, spreading in all directions. The long spear in Rong Xiu's hand weighed over 100 pounds, and it pressed down on Lin Tian's long sword. The powerful force made Lin Tian frown. If he did not use his skill to deflect most of the force from the long spear, the long sword in his hand would have been smashed in half. But even so, Lin Tian still took a few steps back. Clang! At this moment, an ear-piercing sound of a blade rang out. In the blind spot, a saber light slashed over. At first, there was only one saber light, but in the end, it suddenly transformed into many saber shadows. They were densely packed together and rained down on Lin Tian. Below the stage, many disciples were surprised by this scene. This is the Thousand Spirit Blade technique. An old disciple was surprised and said, the Thousand Spirit Blade technique is similar to the Lingyu sword technique. The trajectory of the blade is extremely tricky, and it is very difficult to find the trajectory of the blade light. Who was the one who could produce such a saber technique? This level of Thousand Spirit Blade aura can't be done without a cultivation of the 9th level of the refinement realm. On the high stage, the dense blade light pressed down, and the people surrounding Lin Tian actually retreated. Lin Tian's eyes flashed, and he raised his right hand, sweeping away the large blade light that was closing in on him. Then, he held his long sword across his chest, unhurriedly blocking in front of his chest. Clang! With a crisp sound, the long sword in his hand blocked a long saber. On the opposite side, a young man was holding a long blade with both hands. The blade collided with Lin Tian's long sword, and the distance between the two was less than 3 feet. This scene made even more people's faces change color. After the dense and tricky blade shadows, coupled with a cold and solid long blade, such an attack could be said to be watertight. Many people thought that if they were standing in Lin Tian's position, they would definitely be killed by the blade. But at this moment, Lin Tian easily blocked it, as if he knew where the long blade would come from. Looking at the person holding the blade, many old disciples were surprised again. Mo Kong, the 10th in the Outer Palace? Isn't he in the 8th level of the refinement realm? How did he suddenly reach the 9th level of the refinement realm? Someone was surprised. On the high stage, the young man holding the long blade was wearing a blue robe, and his face was a little surprised. The move just now was his proudest move. After borrowing Rongxiu's attack, he used the 1000 Spirit Slash that he had cultivated to the large success stage. He thought that he could defeat Lin Tian on the spot, but he didn't expect that this tyrannical move was easily blocked by Lin Tian. The young man stared at Lin Tian, and Lin Tian sized up the young man. Mo Kong, from the Mo clan? Lin Tian said indifferently. Mo Kong coldly snorted. So what? You didn't expect this scene? Did you? Staring at Lin Tian, Mo Kong used a voice that only he and Lin Tian could hear as he coldly laughed. One person against several tens of people. Even if you've reached the 9th level of body refinement, I'm afraid it's still impossible for you to win. You instigated them? Lin Tian glanced around. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have agreed. Money can make ghosts turn millstones, and my Mo clan doesn't lack money. While you were still in the inner martial cave, I already greeted them one by one, and promised them enough money to help suppress you. 25 people suppressing you isn't a big problem. You can easily get a large amount of spirit coins, and you can use this opportunity to eliminate a strong competitor. No matter how you look at it, it's a good thing, so why not? Lin Tian's expression was calm, and lightly said, so much trouble, just to eliminate me? To prevent me from entering the inner palace? Of course it's not that simple. Mo Kong snorted. Not long ago, you escaped from the dark forest, and the Patriarch was very angry. After knowing that you would participate in the inner palace selection, the Patriarch specially gave me a bow-in, allowing me to reach the 9th level of the refinement realm. Just for this moment. To them, I only said that I wanted to prevent you from entering the inner palace. But what will happen in reality? Staring at Lin Tian, Mo Kong sinisterly laughed. Although the martial house forbids killing in the same sect, in a fight, there will always be accidents. If I accidentally kill you, even if the martial house is angry, at most they will just expel me from the martial house. Lin Tian was a little strange. You told me all of this. Aren't you afraid that I'll directly report it to the elders? I've investigated you. Mo Kong sneered. You look gentle on the surface, easy to get along with, but your heart is incomparably arrogant. This kind of you, even if you knew what was going on, you would definitely not report it to the martial house elders. Sword and blade crossed. The two were in a deadlock. Chapter 82. City Rex. After about a quarter of an hour, Lin Tian felt that the true essence in his body had become incomparably abundant, and he had completely recovered. Reading, "The effect of this recovery pill is really good," Lin Tian whispered. At this moment, the middle-aged man in charge of the inner house selection coughed. Qualified people: Lin Tian, Hua Yongchang, Rong Xiu. The middle-aged man read out 25 names in a row. Everyone, gather on the high platform. Lin Tian was surprised that Su Shu's name was not among the 25 people. "You didn't pass the Inner Martial Caves assessment? That shouldn't be." Lin Tian asked Su Shu. "Of course I passed. I was the fourth last person to be sent out." Su Shu snorted. "Then why?" Lin Tian was even more curious. Su Shu said, "In the third round of the Battle Royale, I forfeited." "Forfeited?" Lin Tian said strangely. "You're not going to join in the fun?" "Hey, how can you say that?" Su Shu ground her teeth and snorted. "After all, I have an elder as my master. I was able to last for nearly 2 hours in the Inner Martial Cave, which could be considered as bringing honor to that old man. Therefore, I don't want to compete with others for resources in the Inner Martial Cave. Moreover, I don't like the various fights in the Martial House." Lin Tian blushed with shame. "You're talking as if you're sure to win and enter the Inner House." "What did you say?" Su Shu said angrily. "I said you're very noble, always thinking of others." Lin Tian changed his words. "That's more like it." Su Shu snorted. "Okay, go quickly." Lin Tian nodded and walked towards the high platform. Soon, Lin Tian went up the high platform with the others. The high platform was very wide, and it was in the shape of a square. It was about a few hundred square meters, enough to accommodate 200 people at the same time. A mere 25 people naturally wouldn't have the slightest problem. At this moment, dozens of people were standing on the high platform. They were wary of each other. What followed next was a chaotic battle. Everyone else would be their enemy. Lin Tian stood on the high platform and could even hear the heavy breathing of others. "You must be very nervous," Lin Tian thought. At this moment, everyone was ready, and they were only waiting for the middle-aged man to give the order before the final round of the chaotic battle would begin. Below the stage, hundreds of disciples stared at the 25 people on the stage. 25 people. In the end, there will be 4 people standing on the stage. I wonder who the final 4 people will be. That Lin Tian is definitely not a problem. That's right. There's also that Hua Yongchang and Rong Xiu. Those 2 aren't bad either. They should be able to win. It's said that the 2 of them have been working hard this month and have already reached the 9th body refinement layer. As for that Su Shu, she obviously had the chance to enter the inner palace, but she actually gave up. It's quite strange. What's so strange about it? Miss Su was Elder Mu Qing's last disciple. Even if she didn't enter the inner palace, she wouldn't lack cultivation resources. At this time, Miss Su gave up and didn't compete with the other 25 people to enter the inner palace. She should be worthy of our respect. That's right. Speaking of which, that Zhang Feng is a pity. If he wasn't killed by the Greenwind Ridge's demonic beasts, he should have reached the 9th body refinement layer. After all, he was at the peak of the 8th body refinement layer and was ranked 3rd in the outer palace. Yes, it's indeed a pity. The Greenwind Ridge has been getting more and more restless recently. We have to be careful. Yes, many people were discussing. On the high platform, Lin Tian listened to these people's voices and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Zhang Feng was killed by him, but in the end, he was really killed by a demonic beast. Of course, this was also because Zhang Feng was only an ordinary disciple. If an ordinary disciple died in the Greenwind Ridge, the Martial House wouldn't care. In Su Shu's words, being killed by a demonic beast in the Greenwind Ridge only meant that one was very weak. If the Martial House even cared about this, then they would be the parents of these disciples. A dry cough came from the corner of the high platform. Everyone looked towards the source of the sound, and their eyes fell on the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man looked at the 25 people on the high platform. Those who have lost their battle power and can't get up, or those who were thrown out of the stage, are considered to have failed. After a slight pause, the middle-aged man shouted, "Begin!" After saying this, the middle-aged man jumped off the high platform. In an instant, under the high platform, everyone's eyes lit up as they stared at the 25 people. Kung! The sound of a sword was incomparably ear-piercing. Among the 25 people, there was someone who waved his sword and actually attacked Lin Tian. This scene made many people under the stage reveal a strange expression. Who is this person? Is he crazy? Zhao Lin, ranked 6th in the Outer Palace, peak of the 8th body refinement layer. Why is he attacking that evildoer Lin? Does he want to challenge the strong? But to do this at this time, isn't it too unwise? Many people were puzzled. Lin Tian's strength was obvious to all. He was at the 9th body refinement layer and ranked 2nd in the Outer Palace. He was definitely stronger than Zhao Lin by more than one level. However, at this moment, Zhao Lin attacked Lin Tian without even thinking about it, which made many people puzzled. However, in the next moment, something even more shocking happened. Along with the sound of swords and spears vibrating, more and more people attacked Lin Tian, just like Zhao Lin, as if they had already discussed this beforehand. What's going on? Ranked 7th in the Outer Palace, Yang Zheng, ranked 8th in the Outer Palace, Zhou Qi, and the others, why are they all? What's going on? Hundreds of people widened their eyes. Not only were these people puzzled, even Mu Qing and Sherdong frowned. Su Shu was even more furious. At this moment, on the high platform, everyone was attacking Lin Tian without any mercy. Why are these people like this? This is too much, a new disciple angrily said. Among the 25 people, Lin Tian was the only new disciple. To reach this step after entering the martial house for 3 months, this was not only the glory of Lin Tian himself, but also the glory of the other new disciples. At this moment, seeing Lin Tian being besieged by a group of senior disciples, many of the new disciples were enraged. A cold snort came from the side. This is how a battle royale is. How is this too much? Someone is too arrogant and doesn't know how to control himself. I'm afraid he has incurred the wrath of the heavens. As a person, it's better to keep a low profile. That's right. A few senior disciples gathered together and spoke in a strange tone. Lin Tian had only entered the martial house for 3 months. He was obviously a new disciple, but he overshadowed all the senior disciples except for Zhou Hao, which naturally made many of the senior disciples unhappy. Some of the new disciples were angry, but in the end, they could only be angry but did not dare to say anything. They were not Lin Tian. Facing the senior disciples, they did not have the strength to challenge them. Not far away, Zhou Hao and Lu Sheng stood together, looking forward. This is really surprising. Zhou Hao had a smile on his face. Lu Sheng coldly said, "This little bastard is obviously a new disciple, but his limelight is too strong. It should be that all the senior disciples are unhappy." Lu Sheng also had the qualifications to participate in the inner house selection, but because he knew his strength was not enough to enter the inner house, he did not participate. Further away, behind the fake mountain, a few of the inner house disciples gathered together, frowning. A little shameless. That Lin Tian is very strong, but being besieged by more than 20 people, I'm afraid he's in danger. The chance of him standing on the stage is less than 20%. What a pity. A few of the disciples shook their heads. There were a total of 25 people on the stage. At this moment, all of them were attacking Lin Tian. Most of these 25 people were at the 8th layer of body refinement, and there were even Rong Xiu and Hua Yongchang who were at the 9th layer of body refinement. Rong Xiu held a long spear, and his momentum was like a rainbow as he brandished it. Hua Yongchang held a halberd, and his momentum was even stronger than Rong Xiu's. Lin Tian frowned and continuously flashed between the attacks of dozens of people. Dozens of people besieging him. He always felt that it was a little strange. Attack! A loud shout rang out. Rong Xiu's expression was cold, and his eyes flashed. He jumped up, and his long spear fiercely swung down. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly, and the long sword in his hand met the attack. Clang! A loud sound rang out, spreading in all directions. The long spear in Rong Xiu's hand weighed over 100 pounds, and it pressed down on Lin Tian's long sword. The powerful force made Lin Tian frown. If he did not use his skillful strength to deflect most of the force from the long spear, the long sword in his hand would have been smashed in half. But even so, Lin Tian still took a few steps back. Clang! At this moment, an ear-piercing sound of a blade rang out. In the blind spot, a saber light slashed over. At first, there was only one saber light, but in the end, it suddenly transformed into many saber shadows. They were densely packed together and rained down on Lin Tian. Below the stage, many disciples were surprised by this scene. This is the Thousand Spirit Blade technique. An old disciple was surprised and said, "The Thousand Spirit Blade technique is similar to the Ling Yu sword technique. The trajectory of the blade is extremely tricky, and it is very difficult to find the trajectory of the blade light. Who slashed out such a blade technique? This level of Thousand Spirit Blade aura can't be achieved without a cultivation at the 9th level of the refinement realm." Buzz! On the high stage, the dense blade light pressed down, and the people surrounding Lin Tian actually retreated. Lin Tian's eyes flashed, and he raised his right hand, sweeping away the large blade light that was closing in on him. Then he placed his long sword in front of his chest, unhurriedly blocking in front of his chest. Clang! With a crisp sound, the long sword in his hand blocked a long saber. On the opposite side, a young man was holding a long blade with both hands. The blade collided with Lin Tian's long sword, and the distance between the two was less than 3 feet. Hiss! This scene made even more people's faces change color. After the dense and tricky blade shadows, coupled with the cold and solid long blade, such an attack could be said to be watertight. Many people thought that if they were standing in Lin Tian's position, they would definitely be killed by the blade. But at this moment, Lin Tian easily blocked it, as if he knew from the beginning where the long blade would come from. Looking at the person holding the blade, many of the old disciples were shocked again. The 10th in the Outer Palace, Missouri Kong? Isn't he in the 8th level of the refinement realm? How did he suddenly reach the 9th level of the refinement realm? Someone was surprised. On the high stage, the young man holding the long blade was wearing a blue robe, and his face was a little surprised. The move just now was his proudest move. After borrowing Rong Xiu's attack, he displayed the 1000 Spirit Slash that he had cultivated to the large success stage. He thought that he could defeat Lin Tian on the spot, but he didn't expect that this tyrannical move was easily blocked by Lin Tian. The young man stared at Lin Tian, and Lin Tian sized up the young man. "Mo Kong, from the Mo clan?" Lin Tian said indifferently. Mo Kong snorted coldly. "So what? You didn't expect this scene, did you?" Staring at Lin Tian, Mo Kong used a voice that only he and Lin Tian could hear as he laughed coldly. "One person against 10 people. Even if you've reached the 9th level of the refinement realm, I'm afraid it's still impossible for you to win. You instigated them?" Lin Tian glanced around. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have agreed. Money makes the world go round, and my Mo clan doesn't lack money. While you were still in the inner martial cave, I've already greeted them one by one and promised them enough money to work together to suppress you. 25 people suppressing you isn't a big problem. You can easily get a large amount of spirit coins and use this to eliminate a strong competitor. No matter how you look at it, it's a good thing, so why not? Lin Tian's expression was calm as he said indifferently, "So much trouble. Just to eliminate me? Stop me from entering the inner martial cave? Of course it's not that simple." Mo Kong snorted. "Not long ago, you escaped from the dark forest, and the Patriarch was very angry. After knowing that you would participate in the inner martial palace selection, the Patriarch specially gave me a bow in, allowing me to reach the 9th level of the refinement realm, just for this moment. To them, I only said that I wanted to stop you from entering the inner martial palace. But what will happen in reality?" Staring at Lin Tian, Mo Kong sneered. "Although the martial house forbids killing in the same sect, accidents can happen in a fight. If I accidentally killed you, even if the martial house was angry, they would only expel me from the martial house. Lin Tian was a little strange. You told me all of this. Aren't you afraid that I'll report it to the elders? I investigated you. Mo Kong sneered. You look gentle and easy to get along with on the surface, but your heart is incomparably arrogant. This kind of you, even if you knew what was going on, you wouldn't report it to the Marshall House elders. Sword and blade crossed. The two were in a deadlock. Lin Tian had a faint smile on his face. Your investigation is quite clear. It's just as you said. I won't report it to the Marshall House. I'll kick everyone except you off the main stage one by one. After saying this, the smile on Lin Tian's face suddenly turned cold, and a sharp sword intent spread out. As for you, the sword in my hand, maybe an accident will happen in the end. Chapter 83. The sharp sword intent spread out as Lin Tian pulled back his long sword and kicked at Mo Kong's waist. With a bang, Mo Kong was sent flying. He flipped a few times in the air and barely managed to stabilize his body. Landing on the ground and staring at Lin Tian, Mo Kong's face became gloomy. Holding his sword, Lin Tian stood on the high platform and looked at everyone indifferently. "Come at me together," he said coldly. The black hair on his forehead fluttered. At this moment, he stood there like an immortal sword god. Many of the spectating disciples were shocked by this momentum. What a strong stance. Is he really going to fight 24 people alone? Many people were dumbfounded. In the distance, Mu Qing and Shi Dong stared at Lin Tian's figure and were also in a daze. This guy, Su Shu muttered. It was not the first time she saw Lin Tian's strong stance, but she was still a little shocked at this moment. After all, it was 1 against 24, and 3 of them were at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. You want to fight 24 people alone? You're overestimating yourself. Lu Xing snorted. Behind the rockery not far away, a few inner palace disciples' eyes flashed. This Lin Tian is really not ordinary. He can still have such a strong fighting spirit in this situation. What a strong spirit. Unfortunately, spirit can't create miracles. So what? Whether he can enter the inner palace or not, this battle is his victory. A few people had their hands behind their backs. On the high platform, looking at Lin Tian holding his sword, many of the 24 people were moved. At this moment, Lin Tian's aura made many people's hearts tremble. Mo Kong glanced at the crowd and said in a low voice, 2 fists can't fight 4 legs. We have more people, and he's not a match. Let's go together. After that, he was the first to rush up. Using the 1,000 spirit blade technique, the sky was filled with blade auras. Do it, Rongxiu said in a low voice and pressed forward with his long spear. At the same time, Hua Yongchang used a superior body refining technique and slashed at Lin Tian with his halberd. When these 3 people moved, the others immediately moved. Boom! In an instant, 24 tyrannical and violent true core forces surged, and all kinds of martial skills interweaved on the high platform. These people were at least at the 7th layer of the refinement realm. With the attacks of several dozen people gathered together, it was as if they formed an impenetrable wall of attacks. Many of the spectators sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared at this scene. Such an attack was simply terrifying. Who could block it? Looking at the high platform, everyone's gaze involuntarily fell on Lin Tian. Can you block it? Someone murmured. Lin Tian's eyes were calm and indifferent in the face of such a dense barrage of attacks. In the next moment, Lin Tian moved. Like a bolt of lightning, he charged directly towards the 24 people, as if he did not see their joint attack at all. Such an action caused everyone's expression to change. Is he crazy? Someone shouted. Not only the spectators, but even Mu Qing and Shi Dong were shocked. With their cultivation at the peak of the divine vein realm, Lin Tian's action was undoubtedly irrational. The dense barrage of martial skills fluttered and collided with Lin Tian in an instant. Many of the spectators stared at this scene, their eyes wide open. Whoosh! With a flash of light, Lin Tian's speed suddenly increased. Facing the dense barrage of sword lights and saber lights, His body flashed through the gaps between the sword lights and saber lights and directly rushed into the 24 people. He actually dodged such a dense barrage of martial skills. How did he do it? Impossible, right? Many of the spectators' eyes were wide open. The 24 people were attacking with martial skills at the same time, forming a light screen that was almost unshakable. However, Lin Tian had actually rushed into the 24 people's encirclement through the gaps between the barrage of attacks. What kind of sharp judgment and terrifying speed did this require? Among the 24 people, most of the disciples were as shocked as the spectators. At this moment, Lin Tian had already closed in on one of the people. This was a disciple at the peak of the seventh body refinement realm. When he saw Lin Tian appear in front of him, his expression changed greatly. The long sword in his hand fiercely chopped down at Lin Tian. Lin Tian's face was expressionless. He dodged to the side and punched out with his left hand. With a prung sound, followed by a scream, this person's figure was sent flying by a single punch. He directly rolled off the high platform and fell on his back on the ground. For a moment, he couldn't even stand up. So strong, some of the spectators exclaimed. Rushing into the 24 people alone and actually sending one of them flying in an instant, this battle strength really made many people's hearts tremble. Such a scene naturally made the other people on the high platform moved. This strength made many of the disciples tremble. "Don't panic," Mo Kong shouted in a low voice. As he spoke, he appeared in front of Lin Tian. The Thousand Spirit Saber technique was displayed, and a dense barrage of saber lights came down. Lin Tian's face was expressionless. He activated the Heavenly One Spirit technique, and his perception was unprecedentedly strong. He keenly captured the trajectory of each saber light and used the long sword in his hand to shatter them one by one. Mo Kong's expression changed. No one had ever been able to deal with the Thousand Spirit Saber technique so calmly. The sound of the sword reverberated. Lin Tian's sword slashed out. Mo Kong's expression changed. He hurriedly raised his long saber to meet the attack. The saber and sword collided. With a prung sound, a powerful force passed from Lin Tian's sword and forced Mo Kong to take a few steps back. "Don't worry. I'll leave you until the end. I'll let you watch with your own eyes as I kick everyone off the stage one by one. Then, you'll know how stupid and self-righteous you are." Lin Tian said coldly. Clang! The sound of a saber energy came from behind him. Someone was holding a broadsword and slashing at his back. This was a powerhouse in the 8th level of the body refinement realm. His strength was extraordinary and very powerful. Lin Tian's face was expressionless. As if he had eyes on the back of his head, he dodged to the side. Then, he reached out his left hand and grabbed the wrist of the disciple holding the saber. He pressed down slightly, and the sound of bones breaking was immediately heard. "Ah!" The disciple screamed. Lin Tian raised his leg and kicked out. With a bang, the disciple holding the saber was sent flying. He coughed up blood in the air and fell out of the main arena. The second person was blasted out of the arena. "Let's go together," someone shouted. The one who spoke was Zhao Lin. His cultivation was at the peak of the 8th level of the body refinement realm, and he was ranked 6th in the outer house. Immediately, the others responded and attacked Lin Tian. The dense attacks pressed down on Lin Tian. Fist shadows, leg strength, saber radiance, sword radiance, spear techniques, halberd techniques, and all kinds of martial arts techniques appeared one after another. In the face of such attacks, Lin Tian's expression was very calm. He activated the Divine One Soul art, and his perception became incomparably sharp. After that, he moved with the duality steps, flashing like a light among the 22 people. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out. Lin Tian raised the long sword in his hand, and the sword of destruction swept out. "Ah! Ah! Ah!" Screams rang out one after another, and bits of blood mist floated in the air. Lin Tian had already cultivated the shocking wind sword art to the large success realm. At this moment, he displayed the first move of the Sword of Destruction with his 9th body refinement realm cultivation. The power of this martial art technique was even more powerful, and in an instant, it caused the three people to lose their ability to fight. Many people were shocked when they felt the terrifying sword will. Shocking wind sword art? He actually cultivated this martial art technique. The Inner Palace disciples frowned. The shocking wind sword art was famous for being difficult to cultivate. In the martial house, no one had chosen this martial art technique for many years. The Inner Palace disciples never thought that Lin Tian would choose this martial art technique, and that he had already cultivated it to such an extraordinary level. On the high platform, after Lin Tian slashed out with the Sword of Destruction, he did not stop. After swatting away Rong Xiu's long spear, he dodged Hua Yongchang's black halberd. His left hand formed a fist and punched out. "Fire fist," he said coldly. In an instant, 18 fiery fist shadows appeared, attacking in all directions. "Insignificant skill," Mo Kong shouted. The 1,000-spirit saber light slashed out, pressing towards the 18 fiery fists. At this moment, Lin Tian's figure appeared in front of him and kicked out. Mo Kong's expression changed, and he hurriedly raised his long saber to block in front of his chest. Lin Tian's right leg hit the saber, and Mo Kong only felt a huge force rushing towards him. That force passed along the saber to his body, and with a bang, he was sent flying. Then, horrified screams sounded almost at the same time. Someone was hit by Lin Tian's fiery fist, and the flames from his true essence ignited his clothes, turning him into a torch in the blink of an eye. This person screamed in panic and accidentally stepped on air, falling down from the main stage. So embarrassing. Some of the spectators despised him. Dozens of people ganged up on one person, but they were so weak. When everyone's eyes fell on Lin Tian again, their eyes could not help but become respectful, especially many of the freshmen, whose faces were full of worship. Fighting 24 people alone, and in the blink of an eye, 6 of them were defeated. What kind of power was this? This little guy is really interesting. In the distance, Sherdong laughed. Mu Qing nodded, a smile on his face, looking at Lin Tian on the main stage. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. On the main stage, after Lin Tian kicked Mo Kong away, he did not stop. His feet moved, and the long sword in his hand slashed at another person next to him. With a clang, this person's weapon was sent flying by Lin Tian, and his abdomen was hit by Lin Tian's fist. He immediately fell to the ground softly, his face twisted in pain. Lin Tian did not even look at this person. He raised his leg and kicked him out of the main stage. On the main stage, the faces of the others became ugly. Only half an hour had passed, and the 24 people besieged Lin Tian. But now 7 people were defeated. Lin Tian stood in the middle of the 17 people, his clothes fluttering, calm and composed. "It's still early, let's take it slow," he said indifferently. Such an attitude and such words immediately made these people's faces change. "Arrogant! Arrogant!" Rong Xiu and Hua Yongchang shouted one after another. At the same time, the other 10 people also showed anger. "Let's go together. Beat him down. No need to show mercy," many people shouted. Those who could stand here were all elites of the outer palace, and they were all talents, and talents were naturally very proud. At this moment, they surrounded one person, but the other party had such an attitude, completely looking down on them, and did not put them in his eyes at all, which naturally made these people angry. Boom! In an instant, more than 10 people burst out at the same time, and the tyrannical true origin surged over the entire main stage. Facing such power, Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. Holding a long sword in his hand, his clothes fluttered in the wind. He was alone, but he closed in on the 10 people step by step. "You're not worthy of being my opponent." Chapter 84. Lin Tian's words were calm but harsh, causing Rong Xiu's and the others' faces to turn ashen. "Arrogant bastard," Hua Yongchang said coldly. "Let's go together and beat him down," the others shouted. They were all senior disciples. How could they feel good when they were looked down upon by a new disciple? All of these people had mastered high-grade body, refinement-level martial skills. At this moment, when they used them together, the combined power was stronger than any of the previous times, causing the main stage to shake. Saber light danced and halberd light fell, pressing down on Lin Tian at the same time. Terrifying. 17 high-grade body refining realm martial arts. Can that guy block it? Many spectators stared at the front. Lin Tian fought against 24 people alone and defeated 7 of them in the blink of an eye. At this moment, almost everyone was attracted by his figure. In the arena, Lin Tian was expressionless as he faced the sky full of martial arts lights. He squatted down slightly. Shocking wind sword. 4 cold words came out from his mouth. In an instant, an ear-piercing sword sound resounded in all directions, and the unparalleled sword light suppressed all the martial arts lights. Only to hear the continuous sound of the sword light, the martial arts skills of Rong Xiao and the others were all shattered by the sword light. Shocking Wind Sword, the last move of the Shocking Wind Sword art. How is that possible? Most of the 17 people's faces changed color. Not only them, but all the spectators below the arena were also moved at this moment. Behind the rockery, several inner palace disciples narrowed their eyes. Wind Shocking Sword, he actually learned the last sword move. Is this a 9-star talent? It's too terrifying. Maybe there will be a surprise in this battle. Several people stared at the front. No one noticed that these powerful inner palace disciples' eyes were full of light at this moment. In the main arena, Lin Tianyi shattered all the martial arts skills with his sword. Then his figure swayed and appeared in front of one of them in an instant. With a bang, he kicked the man's abdomen, and the man was immediately sent flying. Staring at the man's flying figure, Lin Tian raised his left hand and threw out a shadow punch. Ah! The man screamed as he was hit by Lin Tian's shadow fist while he was still in the air. He fell out of the main ring in a sorry state. Damn it! Frenzy Halberd Art! Rong Xiao and Hua Yongchang pressed forward together. These two were powerful martial artists at the 9th layer of the refinement realm, and the martial skills they cultivated were not ordinary among the top-level martial skills of the refinement realm. They were extremely powerful. Lin Tian's expression didn't change as he faced the two of them. Lin Tian turned the long sword in his hand and slashed at an oblique angle, brushing past Rong Xiao's 100-gene heavy spear. Specks of starlight were rubbed out. Rong Xiao's expression changed, and he swept his spear across. Almost at the same time, Hua Yongchang's halberd pressed down, thrusting towards Lin Tian's abdomen. The two of them were both at the 9th body refinement layer, and their coordination was very good. Their killing power was very strong. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent as he activated the Heavenly One Spirit Art. His powerful perception allowed him to capture every movement of the two. The long sword in his right hand spun and suddenly flung out, turning into a flash of lightning as it rushed towards Hua Yongchang. The hilt of the sword fiercely hit Hua Yongchang's abdomen, sending him flying with a bang. Immediately, he squatted down, avoiding the spear of the person behind him while sweeping his leg. The violent force of his leg fell on Rong Xiao's lower body, causing Rong Xiao to lose his balance and fall down. It was also at this time that Lin Tian grabbed the spear above his head and suddenly flung it forward, causing the person behind him to fly towards Rong Xiao. Bang! The two of them collided and rolled to the side at the same time. At this time, Lin Tian stood up. The long sword that he threw at Hua Yongchang also flew back due to the recoil. He grasped it in his hand and slashed out with the Annihilation Sword. Ah! 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 Another 3 screams resounded. 3 people were swept by the Annihilation Sword and flew back in a sorry state. 2 of them directly rolled out of the main stage and lost the qualification to fight. The outcome of the battle was clear in an instant, and everyone was shocked. At this moment, not to mention the ordinary spectators, even Mu Qing and Shi Dong's expression changed. What an amazing battle. This chapter is not complete. Please turn the page, Talent. Mu Qing was shocked. From the moment Rong Xiao and Hua Yongchang joined forces to the moment Lin Tian threw his long sword and hit Hua Yongchang with the hilt of the sword. From the moment he squatted down to avoid the spear behind him, to the moment he kicked Rongxiu, who was attacking with the spear, to the moment he pulled out the spear from the person behind him and collided with Rongxiu, to the moment he grabbed the flying longsword and used the annihilation sword to send the three people flying. This series of actions was closely linked and as smooth as flowing water. It was as if he had calculated everything from the beginning. Dong smiled bitterly. This little guy is simply born for battle. With such an amazing battle talent and such an elegant battle standard, even Mu Qing and Dong, who were peak divine range experts, felt ashamed of their inferiority. When they were at Lin Tian's level, they didn't have such control. Whether it was speed, reaction, or perception, they were far inferior to Lin Tian. This monster! Su Shu ground her teeth. Around the stage, all the spectators' eyes lit up. Wonderful! Good! Beautiful! Some of the freshmen couldn't help but shout. Not only the freshmen, but even some of the older disciples couldn't help but cheer. Just now, Lin Tian's series of actions were too wonderful. Many people's eyes lit up. Of course, there were also some people who didn't look good. This little bastard. Lu Sheng's face was gloomy. Zhou Hao smiled faintly. What's the hurry? I already said that the more halos there are on his head, the worse he will fall in the end. The best part is yet to come. Hearing Zhou Hao's words, Lu Sheng's face became better. Young Master Zhou is right. Zhou Hao was at the divine range realm. No matter how strong Lin Tian's battle talent was, he was only at the body refinement realm. There was a huge gap between him and the divine range realm. An early divine range realm martial artist was not a match for hundreds of ninth-layer body refinement realm cultivators. On the main stage, Lin Tian held a long sword in his hand, his eyes cold. His footsteps were gentle as he approached the last dozen people standing. In the process, several people who had lost their ability to fight were kicked off the main stage by him. All of them screamed from below the stage. There are 14 people left. Let's see how long you can last. Lin Tiantan said indifferently. His figure flashed, and like an afterimage, he appeared in front of one of them. This person's face changed. But in an instant, an iron fist landed on this person's abdomen and sent him flying with a bang. Now, there were 13 people left. There's no way back. Attack together, Mo Kong shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, Mo Kong used the Thousand Spirits Saber art. A sky full of saber light fell on Lin Tian. It was stronger than any of the previous attacks. Mo Kong's eyes were cold as he stared at Lin Tian. Dragon Spear art, Frenzy Halberd art. Rongxiu and Hua Yongchang roared and rushed forward one after another. The Thousand Spirit Blade technique, the Dragon Spear technique, and the Berserk Halberd technique. These three were the more famous martial skills amongst the upper-level body refinement martial skills. At this moment, the three of them were using their full strength with the cultivation of the 9th level of body refinement martial skills. Naturally, these three martial skills were displayed to the maximum. At the same time, Zhao Lin, Yang Zheng, and Zhou Qi attacked Lin Tian with the others. In the middle of the encirclement, Lin Tian only smiled coldly. Facing more than 10 people, he did not have the slightest fear. He did not even feel the slightest pressure. With a flash of his body, he charged out like a bolt of lightning. With a bang, before anyone could react, a blood-curdling scream rang out. Someone coughed up blood and flew out from the main arena. There was a clear footprint on his chest. So fast, such a scene made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. With a clang, Lin Tian's long sword slashed diagonally on Rongxiu's long spear. Shocking wind sword chi bloomed from the sword, and a silver sword chi pierced Rongxiu's arm. Blood flowed out of his entire arm. Just as Rongxiu pulled back his spear and retreated, Lin Tian took a step forward and ruthlessly kicked his chest. With a bang, Rongxiu fell out. However, he quickly stood up with the support of his long spear. Oh, a 9th-layer body refinement realm martial artist can really take a beating? Lin Tianling said coldly. Such words instantly made Rongxiu's face turn purple. It was extremely ugly. However, Lin Tian did not care about him and waved the long sword in his hand again. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of weapons colliding rang out one after another. This chapter does not end. Please turn the page. The sound spread all around. A moment later, another person was sent flying by Lin Tian and fell out of the main stage. Ah! A mournful scream rang out, and blood flowed down. The outer house's 7th-ranked Yang Zheng was pierced through the shoulder by a sword chi and staggered out of the main stage. He did not get up for a long time. In the next few minutes, as the battle with Lin Tian deepened, many people became alarmed. The 24 of them joined forces to attack Lin Tianyi. Not only did they not hurt Lin Tianyi, but they also suffered under Lin Tian's hands. Even the 9th-layer body refinement realm, Hua Yongchang, and the other two were not his opponent and were constantly injured. This is too abnormal. How can he be so terrifying? Is he still human? Monster. Absolutely a monster. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. To be able to fight 24 people alone and achieve this step, in the eyes of many Martial House disciples, this was simply inhuman. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of weapons rang out from time to time. In the blink of an eye, another few people were kicked out of the main stage by Lin Tian. Thousand spirits slash. A cold voice rang out. Mo Kong grasped the gap, and the long blade in his hand bloomed with the coldest light. The strength that burst out in an instant made all the spectators' faces change. Even Mu Qing and Shi Dong, who were far away, were no exception. The most important thing was that they could clearly feel a strong killing intent from this attack. Lin Tian Lung snorted and raised the long sword in his hand. Lightning sword. Ka! A crisp sound rang out, and the long blade in Mo Kong's hand was cut in half. At the same time, Lin Tian's sword chi left a bloody hole in Mo Kong's right leg, causing Mo Kong to fall out of the main stage. Before he could stand up, Lin Tianyi stepped forward and fiercely kicked Mo Kong's left leg. Ah! Mo Kong screamed miserably. His cheeks were distorted, and his legs couldn't exert any strength. It was difficult for him to stand up again. Up until now, including Lin Tian, there were 4 people standing in the main stage. The other 3 were Rong Xiao, Hua Yongchang, and Zhao Lin. He fought against 24 people alone, and actually won. What a terrifying man. Many of the spectators were shocked. Behind the rockery, several Inner Palace disciples nodded and looked deeply at Lin Tian's figure on the main stage. The Inner Palace selection is now over. What a wonderful battle. One of them said in a deep voice, "Let's prepare to welcome these 5 people. Zhou Hao, Lin Tian, Rong Xiao, Hua Yongchang, and Zhao Lin." This person was dressed in black and had an extraordinary temperament. On the main stage, Rong Xiao and the other 2 were angry but also relieved. Although they couldn't get the 10,000 spirit coins promised by Mo Kong because they couldn't beat Lin Tian down the stage, and although they felt a little humiliated, they were still one of the last 4 people standing on the stage. They were about to become Inner Palace disciples and receive more cultivation resources. This was enough. Zhao Lin even raised his hand and wiped the sweat on his forehead. There was a hint of joy in his eyes. Because, according to normal circumstances, the last people standing on the main stage should be Lin Tian, Hua Yongchang, Rong Xiao, and Mo Kong. After all, these 4 people were at the 9th level of refinement, far from what he could compare to. It could be said that he picked up a big bargain. Below the main stage, the middle-aged man presiding over the Inner Palace selection looked in the direction of Mu Qing and Shi Dong. Seeing the 2 of them nod, he immediately understood and walked towards the main stage. The Inner Palace selection was now over, and he would announce the names of the people entering the Inner Palace. "Great," Su Shu said happily. All the spectators let out a sigh of relief and waited for the middle-aged man to announce the result. At this moment, with a clang, an ear-piercing sword sound rang out. On the main stage, Lin Tian held a long sword in his hand and walked step by step towards Rong Xiao and the other 2. Looking at this scene, everyone's expression changed. This Lin Tian, what is he doing? Isn't it all over? Many people were puzzled. Even the middle-aged man presiding over the inner palace selection was moved and couldn't help but stop. On the main stage, Rongxiu and the other two were moved. Mo Kong fell to the ground and lost the qualification. Counting, we now have 4 people. Rongxiu said in a deep voice, "The elder has already said that the last 4 people on the main stage will be the winners. What else do you want to do?" "Is that so?" The elder did say so. Lin Tian was expressionless and his footsteps didn't stop. The long sword in his hand flashed with a cold light. "But you must be able to stay." End of chapter. Chapter 85. Hearing Lin Tian's words, Rongxiu and the other two's expressions changed. "Do you want it?" Lin Tian was expressionless and did not speak at all. His figure flashed, and in the next moment, he appeared in front of the 3 and slashed down with the long sword in his hand. The 3's expressions changed. Zhao Lin raised his broadsword and blocked in front of him. With a clang, the long sword and the broadsword collided. An unprecedented force was transmitted from the long sword to the broadsword, and the violent force shook Zhao Lin until he coughed up blood. "Get down," Lin Tianlong said, and raised his hand to slap Zhao Lin. With a bang, Zhao Lin was sent flying and rolled down the main stage. Falling down the main stage, Zhao Lin struggled to stand up while vomiting blood and stared angrily at Lin Tian. The chaotic battle clearly could have ended, yet now he was struck down from the main combat ring by Lin Tian. Falling down the main stage was equivalent to losing the qualification for the selection. "Damn it!" Zhao Lin roared. This scene only happened in an instant. It was only when Zhao Lin was beaten down the main stage and roared that the crowd came back to their senses. There are only 4 people left. It's already over. He actually beat down another person. There are only 3 people left. Everyone stared. However, in the next moment, everyone was shocked again. On the main stage, Lin Tian was approaching Rongxiu and Hua Yongchang. Staring at this scene, even Mu Qing and Shi Dong were moved. The middle-aged man presiding over the selection frowned and strode forward, ready to stop him. Clang! At this moment, an even more ear-piercing sword sound rang out, and a sharp sword intent spread throughout the main stage. Lin Tian displayed a lightning sword, instantly cutting the long halberd in Hua Yongchang's hand and leaving a deep sword mark on Hua Yongchang's chest. Clutching his chest, Hua Yongchang's hand was full of blood. "Junior brother Lin, stop. The selection is over. We don't have to fight anymore," Hua Yongchang said in a panic. Once he fell down the main stage, he would lose the qualification for the selection. Seeing Zhao Lin's situation, Hua Yongchang was a little scared. He did not want to lose the inner house disciple spot that he had already obtained. "You think we won't fight just because you said so? Who do you think you are?" Lin Tian's expression was cold. He raised his left hand and threw out a fire fist. Now that Lin Tian's cultivation had reached the 9th heavenly layer of body refinement, the power of these fiery fists couldn't be said to be weak. 18 fiery fists simultaneously bombarded Hua Yongchang's body. Hua Yongchang's body was instantly set ablaze as he was sent flying out of the arena, emitting a miserable shriek. Below the main stage, everyone was stunned. Another person was, "There are only 2 left." He is heading towards Rongxiu. Could it be that Lin Tian wants to knock everyone off the Vermilion Arena? Many of the spectators widened their eyes. Ever since the establishment of the Nanyang martial house, the final battle of the inner palace elections would always end when there was a certain number of people left on the main stage. That would signify the end of the battle and that there would be no need to continue. But now, this battle could clearly end, but Lin Tian did not let it end. Instead, he continuously sent 2 people flying off the stage. Although the Nanyang martial house did not stipulate that the last few people left could not continue to fight, generally speaking, at this point, no one would choose to continue fighting. It was simply a thankless task. But now Lin Tian did this kind of thing. He was the first to do this kind of thing, once again creating a precedent in the martial house's history. This guy is really domineering. Some people's eyes lit up. Although they were shocked by Lin Tian's actions, gradually, more people felt a burst of excitement. People did not want to challenge the norm, but they wanted to see others challenge it. In the distance, Lu Sheng and Zhou Hao stood together, their faces incomparably gloomy. This arrogant little bastard. Lu Sheng's face was gloomy. Zhou Hao laughed and said, "Wait for him to knock everyone down, then get knocked down and seriously think about it. Wouldn't that be better?" With a smile on his face, Zhou Hao looked very calm from beginning to end. Yes, at that time, that little bastard probably won't be able to cry even if he wants to. Lu Sheng sneered. Further away, behind the fake mountain, a few inner house disciples' eyes lit up. Interesting, this Lin Tian is very good, the black-clothed man said in a deep voice. At this moment, there were only 3 people left on the main stage. Lin Tian, Rong Xiao, and the disqualified Mo Kong. Damn it! Staring at Lin Tian's back, Mo Kong's face turned ugly. Mo Kong did not expect that the outcome would be like this when 24 people besieged one person. He moved his legs, but he could not muster any strength. He wanted to get up, but he could not. At this moment, Lin Tian had already closed in on Rong Xiao. "Junior brother Lin, quickly stop. We can talk about it." Rong Xiao's expression changed. "We were wrong to attack you together at the beginning. After we enter the inner house, I will apologize to you. For now, can we stop for the time being?" Having truly felt Lin Tian's strength, Rong Xiao's heart trembled when he saw Zhao Lin and Hua Yongchang being kicked off the stage one after another. He knew very well that he was definitely not Lin Tian's opponent. He did not want to lose the qualification to enter the inner house. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air sounded. Lin Tian used lightning and instantly closed in on Rong Xiao. With a clang, the long sword in Lin Tian's hand firmly pressed on Rong Xiao's long spear. Rong Xiao held the long spear with both hands and only felt his arms go numb. He could not help but be even more shocked. He looked at Lin Tian with some fear. This slightly delicate-looking youth was only 16 years old. At this moment, he was holding a sword in one hand and could not move. He only felt that the long spear was pressed down by a mountain. "You..." Looking at Lin Tian, Rong Xiao's voice trembled. With a clang, the long sword in Lin Tian's hand shook violently. The shocking wind sword chi suddenly burst out, and several sword chi pierced into Rong Xiao's arms. "Ah!" Rong Xiao screamed as his arms were dripping with blood. Lin Tian lifted his leg and, with a bang, kicked Rong Xiao off the main stage. Falling out of the main stage, Rong Xiao's whole body trembled. His eyes became resentful, and at the same time, there was a strong sense of regret. He could have entered the inner house normally, but because he coveted the tens of thousands of spirit coins promised by Mo Kong, he ended up like this. Falling out of the main stage was equivalent to losing the qualification to enter the inner house. Around the main stage, all the spectators widened their eyes. He really knocked them all down? This brother is really so fierce. So cool. Many people's hearts palpitated, and some female disciples were even infatuated. In the distance, Shi Dong and Mu Qing stared at this scene. They looked at each other and could not help but smile bitterly. This little guy is really reckless. Mu Qing was helpless. On the side, Su Shu snorted. "What do you mean by reckless? Those bastards are shameless. They deserve to be beaten down." 24 old disciples besieged a new disciple at the same time, which really made Su Shu very angry. "Forget it, Su girl is right. Those people can only blame themselves." Shi Dong face-bombed. "How should I put it? This can be considered a new record in the martial house." On the main stage, Lin Tian turned around and walked towards Mo Kong. Clang! The sword whistled again, causing everyone's expression to change. "What's going on? Didn't everyone get beaten down?" He's walking towards Mo Kong. Mo Kong? Mo Kong is lying on the ground and has lost all his battle strength. He has already lost the qualification to be selected. Many people were puzzled. Could it be that he wants to kick this person down to vent his anger? This is possible. It's best if this scene, I like it. Some people whispered to each other. In the distance, Mu Qing and Sherdong were somewhat puzzled. What does this little guy want to do? Sherdong frowned. On the main stage, Lin Tian walked to Mo Kong's side. The long sword in his hand was slightly raised, and the cold blade landed on Mo Kong's neck. You said before that there will be accidents, right? Lin Tian said coldly. Hearing this, Mo Kong's expression suddenly changed greatly. Elder! Elder! He wants to kill me. Save me, Elder! Mo Kong shouted loudly. At this moment, deep fear appeared in Mo Kong's eyes. Just as he said before, he had investigated Lin Tian and understood Lin Tian very well. Therefore, he did not doubt that Lin Tian would dare to kill him in public. Hearing Mo Kong's voice, all the disciples were moved. How is this possible? Even if you don't want to be kicked down the main stage, you don't have to make such a joke. That's right. Many people pointed at Mo Kong. Not a single one of them believed Mo Kong's words. After all, the martial house forbade disciples from killing each other. Unless both sides agreed to a life and death battle, like what happened 3 months ago between Lin Tian and Mo's son, the martial house would mete out the cruelest punishment once a disciple killed each other. Seeing that these people did not believe him, Mo Kong shouted in horror, It's true! It's true! Elder, save me! With the cold blade against his neck, Mo Kong was scared to death. Seeing him like this, many disciples gradually showed doubts. Many people were shaken. In the distance, Mu Qing and Sherdong frowned. Lin Tian, what's going on? Seeing Mu Qing and Sherdong speak, Lin Tian followed the voice and nodded to the two of them. Sweeping his gaze across the hundreds of disciples, Lin Tian's expression was very calm. The grudges between Lin Tian and the Mo family should be clear to everyone here. 3 months ago, because of the examination's limelight, I overshadowed Mo's son, and because of some other reasons, Mo's son hated me to the bone. Coincidentally, Mo's son had a good uncle who was an elder of the martial house. At that time, Mo was the one who drew lots for the last round of the assessment. Coincidentally, in this round, Mo's son and I were matched up. Afterwards, Mo's son proposed a life or death battle to me, and Mo agreed. To be able to enter the Nine-Yang martial house, everyone here is a genius. At the very least, your wisdom is not something an ordinary person can compare to. I think everyone should be clear about what kind of tricks are involved in this. Hearing this, all the disciples were moved. Many senior disciples frowned. According to Lin Tian's words, the senior disciples could guess that this was definitely Mo's intention. It was a conspiracy. As for the hundreds of new disciples, they knew about this matter and knew that there was something fishy going on. That Mo is shameless, someone muttered in a low voice. In the distance, Mu Qing and Sherdong's faces were slightly embarrassed. This matter was indeed Mo's fault. As an elder of the Nine-Yang martial house, Mo could be considered to represent the Nine-Yang martial house. Naturally, it was not a good thing. This little guy, why did he suddenly mention this matter? Mu Qing smiled bitterly. On the main stage, Lin Tian's expression was calm as he continued. The Mo family is a martial family. Mo knew that Mo-san cultivated a mid-grade body, refining martial technique, and his cultivation was 1 stage higher than mine. Therefore, Mo was sure that Mo-san could definitely kill me. Unfortunately, the outcome did not go as he wished. In that battle, Mo-san died. After that, Mo acted personally. He disregarded the rules he had set and tried to kill me in front of everyone. At that time, if Elder Mu Qing and Elder Sherdong hadn't saved me, Lin Tian wouldn't be standing here today. Here, Lin Tian would like to thank the 2 elders again. If not for the 2 elders, Lin Tian would have died in Mo's hands. As he spoke, Lin Tian bowed deeply in Mu Qing and Sherdong's direction. Standing straight, Lin Tian continued. At that time, Mo hated me. The entire Mo family was constantly scheming against me. A month ago, I went to the dark forest to sharpen myself. Because of some shameless people, my whereabouts were exposed. Then, the entire Mo family rushed to the dark forest to kill me. Among the people who chased me, the Mo family's patriarch, Mo Hai, personally came. Elder Mo also followed. If not for Lin Tian's good luck, he would have died. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed again. Lu Sheng, who was standing beside Zhou Hao, trembled slightly. Fear flashed in his eyes, and his face turned ugly. Further away, Mu Qing and Shi Dong's expressions changed drastically. There was such a thing? Both of their eyes turned icy cold. P.S. Sorry, the computer is broken. Long has to go out and fix it. That's all for today. Please forgive me. Chapter 86. Since the establishment of the Nanyang Martial House, Lin Tian was the first disciple with a 9-star talent. Whether it was talent, character, or courage, he was perfect in every aspect. Mu Qing and Shi Dong had high hopes for him, and he was the brightest star in the history of the Nanyang Martial House. However, in a situation where they did not know, the Mo family actually dared to use their entire clan to assassinate Lin Tian. This was a challenge to the martial house's dignity. How dare they? Shi Dong was furious. Even Mu Qing, who had always been a gentle person, had a sullen expression at this moment. Many martial house disciples around them were moved. How shameless! A new disciple said angrily. The death battle between Lin Tian and Mo Sun was witnessed by more than 100 new disciples. It was Mo and Mo Sun's conspiracy. Mo Sun proposed it himself after he had all the advantages. Under such circumstances, Mo Sun deserved to be killed, and he should have no complaints. However, the Mo family used their entire clan to assassinate Lin Tian, and even Mo, an elder of the Nanyang Martial House, participated in it. It was truly shameless. Suddenly, an older disciple was moved. Wait, this guy actually managed to survive in that sort of situation? Someone's expression changed. The head of the Mo clan was an expert of the 4th layer of the Divine Vein Realm, and Mo was an expert of the 9th layer of the Divine Vein Realm. In addition to the other experts of the Mo clan, Lin Tian actually survived under such circumstances. How heaven-defying was that? Thinking about it seriously, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. A month ago, good, very good. Counting it, it was the day Mo went missing. Shi Dong's expression was cold. What a Mo family. Playing this game with us. After a pause, Shi Dong looked at Lin Tian and asked, Lin Tian, Mo, he want to kill you. Do you know where he went in the end? After that, he disappeared. Lin Tian shook his head and said, at that time, Disciple was heavily injured by Mo Hai and fled into a mountain cave to hide. Only after my injuries had improved did I cautiously escape from the dark forest. As for what happened after that, Disciple does not know. Moi had been killed by the Violet Fairy. Lin Tian had seen it clearly, but he would not say anything about it. Mu Qing frowned and said, what happened a month ago has to do with what happened now. Mu Qing believed that Lin Tian would not bring up the past for no reason. Elder is wise. Lin Tian nodded. A month ago, the Mo family failed to kill me. When they found out that I would be participating in this year's inner house selection, they asked Mo Kong to take action. They bribed all the disciples who entered the last round of the Battle Royale with a generous amount of spirit coins. They asked everyone to suppress me together, while Mo Kong took advantage of the chaos and killed me by accident. In Mo Kong's own words, if he were to accidentally kill me, the martial house would at most expel him from the martial house. Lin Tian's words were very calm, but everyone around him had a change of expression. This? You actually dare to do this? Aren't you a little too bold? Many people stared. This was the Nanyang Martial House. Although the Mo family was the only martial arts family in Supervisor Feng City, they were just ants compared to the Nanyang Martial House. On such an important day, the Nanyang Martial House's inner house selection, the Mo family actually dared to do such a thing, bribing the martial house's disciples to assassinate the martial house's most brilliant genius. This was indeed a little too bold. There's actually such a thing? Damn it. Su Shu glared angrily. Mu Qing, Shi Dong, and the other mentors of the martial house all had gloomy expressions. Looking at the reactions of the Marshall House's disciples, looking at Mu Qing and the others' faces, Mo Kong's expression changed. He shouted, "Elders, please don't listen to his nonsense. He has a grudge with my Mo family, so he doesn't like our Mo family. This is framing. He is slandering me. He is deliberately framing me. Bah! You think everyone is as shameless as your Mo family," Sushu said angrily. Mu Qing signaled Sushu to keep quiet. He looked at Hua Yongchang and the others below the main stage and asked, "Is there such a thing?" Meeting Mu Qing's gaze, Hua Yongchang and the others' faces turned pale. "No, no, Elder, there is no such thing," Hua Yongchang said. "Yes." Rongxiu stared at Lin Tian and said, "He has a grudge against us, so he is deliberately saying this." "Yes, how could we do such a thing?" Zhao Lin also said. At the same time, Zhou Qi and the others also spoke and denied it. "Enough!" Mu Qing shouted. Looking at the 23 Outer House disciples who were kicked off the main stage by Lin Tian, Mu Qing's face was very ugly. With his cultivation at the peak of the divine vein realm and being an elder of the Marshall House, his experience was not low. With just a glance at the 23 people's expressions, he knew that Lin Tian was not lying. 23 Outer House geniuses actually worked together to do such a thing. "All of you are very good. Very good? You are really proud." Mu Qing's face was gloomy. Meeting Mu Qing's gaze, Hua Yongchang and the others all trembled. They knew that they could no longer hide it. "Elder, please forgive us we were just confused for a moment. We were jealous of junior brother Lin's talent and coveted the spirit coins that Mo Kong promised us, so we made a big mistake. Moreover, we didn't know that Mo Kong wanted to kill junior brother Lin. If we knew, we would have done it even if he gave us more spirit coins. Please forgive us, Elder. Please forgive us, Elder." The 23 people's faces were all pale. "Forgive us? You want to forgive us with just a word of forgiveness? There is no such thing in this world." Staring at the 23 people, Mu Qing said coldly, "From now on, you will be deprived of all your cultivation resources for half a year. You are not allowed to take half a step out of the Marshall House." The 23 people's faces all changed. Being deprived of cultivation resources for half a year and not being able to take half a step out of the Marshall House was too great a loss for them. Especially Hua Yongchang and Rongxiu. Their eyes were filled with regret. With their strength, they could have entered the inner palace, but now they had gone for wool and come home shorn. Not only did they lose the qualification to enter the inner palace, but they were also deprived of cultivation resources in the outer palace for half a year. Furthermore, their freedom was restricted for half a year. At this moment, the two of them wanted to roar with regret. Not caring about the 23 people's expressions, Mu Qing's gaze fell on Mo Kong. "As for you, you have quite the guts. In the last round of the Inner Palace Disciple Selection, you actually dared to play such a trick. You secretly plotted to assassinate the most talented martial genius in the Marshall House for hundreds of years. Your Mo family thinks that the Nanyang Marshall House is easy to bully, right?" Mu Qing was a gentle person, and the more gentle a person was, the more terrifying they were when they were angry. Hearing Mu Qing's words, Mo Kong could not help but tremble. "Elder, please forgive us. Elder, please forgive us." Mo Kong begged for mercy. At this moment, Mo Kong knew that it was useless to say anything. He could not defend himself. "Forgive us?" At this moment, Sherdong opened his mouth and said coldly, "The 23 of them are considered accomplices. They did not know your true intentions, so they were deprived of cultivation resources for half a year, and their freedom was restricted for half a year as punishment. As for you, you bribed dozens of outer palace geniuses to assassinate our Marshall House's most outstanding genius. How can you be forgiven for your crimes?" Sherdong and Mu Qing were the same. They both had great expectations for Lin Tian, so they were naturally furious. With the crimes you committed, you can be punished as if you killed your fellow disciples, or even more seriously. Mu Qing said coldly. The aura of the peak of the divine vein realm suppressed many Marshall House disciples, causing them to tremble in fear. As for the Mo family, you tried to assassinate our Marshall House's disciple a month ago. Now, you even use such despicable actions to disrupt the inner palace election. You must give the Nine-Yang Marshall House an explanation. Please forgive us, elders, Mo Kong shouted. Aside from life and death battles, killing fellow disciples was a taboo in the Marshall House. It was a capital offense. At this moment, Mo Kong's face was filled with terror. At this moment, Lin Tian opened his mouth. Elder Mu, Elder Sure, Lin Tian would like to thank the two elders and the Marshall House. Although there are many people targeting Lin Tian truly feels warmth. Lin Tian's expression was serious. Therefore, the grudge between Lin Tian and the Mo family will no longer trouble the Marshall House. Lin Tian will settle it himself. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of a sword rang out. Pooh! A bloody light flashed, and Mo Kong's head flew diagonally off. The bloody head fell off the main stage, and the blood dyed the stage red. Everyone's expression changed. He actually killed him? Hiss! All the Marshall House disciples' expressions changed. This guy is at it again. He doesn't even blink when killing people. Su Shu muttered. Mu Qing and Shi Dong's expressions changed. They looked at each other and shook their heads. Forget it. This is what he deserves. Mu Qing sighed. Shi Dong looked at the main stage and said helplessly, Little guy, can it end now? Is there anything else? Hearing this, many Marshall House disciples felt a little ashamed. 24 Outer House elites were all knocked off the main stage and received the most severe punishment. Mo Kong had even paid the price with his life. How could it not end? No matter how one looked at it, it was already over. What else could there be? At this moment, out of everyone's expectations, Lin Tian nodded on the main stage. Yes. His voice was calm, but it moved all the disciples. Is there really something else? Many people stared. Even Mu Qing and Shi Dong were a little confused. Thinking about it, there shouldn't be anything else. Oh, what's the matter? Mu Qing asked curiously. At this moment, everyone's gaze fell on Lin Tian. Lin Tian turned around, his expression indifferent. The long sword in his hand pointed to the distance. Zhou Hao, come up. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed abruptly. Zhou Hao, the Outer House's #1, had already reached the Divine Pulse realm. He was the overall #1 in the Inner House selection. However, at this moment, Lin Tian pointed the long sword in his hand in Zhou Hao's direction. It was obvious that he wanted to fight. He wants to challenge the Outer House's #1. Zhou Hao? This can't be. He just defeated 24 people together, and now he wants to challenge Zhou Hao. How arrogant! Many people stared at him. In the distance, behind the rockery, several Inner House experts were also shocked. Challenging the Divine Pulse realm with a conjoined body realm? Several people frowned. Chapter 87. Lin Tian, 9th Layer Body Refinement. Zhou Hao, Divine Vein Realm. The two of them were on completely different levels of strength. However, after Lin Tian defeated everyone in the last battle, he raised his sword and shouted out Zhou Hao's name. He actually wanted to fight. This caused all the disciples of the Marshall House to be moved. Is he going to fight for first place? Someone stared. Zhou Hao's face sank, and his smile disappeared. Lin Tian had called out his name at this moment, and was standing on the main stage with his sword pointed at him. That kind of attitude made him very unhappy. Junior brother Lin, are you sure you want to fight with me? Zhou Hao asked. Hypocrite, we already signed a life and death contract 3 months ago. Why ask such a question now? Lin Tian said sarcastically. Saying this, Lin Tian reached into his chest and took out the letter of challenge he had signed that day. This is a life and death battle? There was such a thing. 3 months ago, Lin Tian had just entered the Marshall House. Many people stared. Mu Qing and Shi Dong frowned. Su Shu pulled on Mu Qing's arm and briefly explained what had happened. Nonsense. Mu Qing said angrily. Staring at Lin Tian and Zhou Hao, Mu Qing said with a heavy face, "The two of you, let's drop this matter." Lin Tian was a 9-star talent, the most outstanding disciple of the martial house in hundreds of years, and Zhou Hao was not bad either. He had reached the divine vein realm in the outer house. If either of them died, it would be a great loss. Most importantly, Mu Qing was very clear that if the two of them really fought, Lin Tian's chances of defeat were almost 100%. How could a body refinement realm cultivator win against a divine vein realm cultivator? Facing Mu Qing's eyes, Lin Tian was silent for a long time before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, Elder Mu, please forgive Lin Tian's disobedience." Lin Tian calmly said, "That day, after the battle with the Emosen family, I remember Elder Shi asking Lin Tian why he still wanted to kill the Emosen family despite knowing their strength. Today, Lin Tian still answered Elder Shi with the same words. A man in this world, there are things he cannot do, and there are things he must do." Hearing this, Shi Dong and Mu Qing frowned. Lin Tian also had a grudge against Zhou Hao. On the main stage, Lin Tian's gaze fell on Zhou Hao as he indifferently said, "Just like Emo's son, Zhou Hao was the first to propose a life-or-death battle. Then, what's interesting is that on that day, when I returned from the Greenwind Ridge, there were immediately other martial house disciples who jumped out and said that they would teach me a lesson on behalf of Zhou Hao and cripple one of my hands." Hearing this, many people were shocked. Many people looked at Zhou Hao, and their expressions became strange. Facing everyone's gaze, Zhou Hao shook his head. "I don't know about this. Really? With your status as the outer house's #1 disciple, perhaps you wouldn't do such a despicable thing to a new disciple like me. Come on, for the time being, let's just assume that these blind things voluntarily stood up for you." Lin Tian smiled, his words full of sarcasm. After a pause, Lin Tian continued, "Let's not talk about that matter. Then, do you still remember the outer house trial not long ago? Facing the attack of the 4th grade 100-legged beast, at the end, I could have escaped its attack range, but thanks to you, I couldn't and was entangled by the 100-legged beast. Fortunately, Lin Tian, was lucky and didn't die in the end." "What?" Su Shu's expression changed. She still remembered the scene of that day very clearly. Now that Lin Tian suddenly mentioned this matter, was there more to it? Zhou Hao frowned, slightly unhappy. "Junior brother Lin, what do you mean? Although we agreed to a life-or-death battle before, I, Zhou Hao, am open and above board. I won't do such underhanded things. Don't tell me that just because I didn't succeed in saving you, it's my fault in the end." "He's an ingrate. Shameless," Lu Xing shouted. "Shut up, you piece of trash." Lin Tian swept a glance at Lu Sheng, his cold gaze causing Lu Sheng to tremble in fear. With a disdainful snort, Lin Tian's gaze once again fell on Zhou Hao. "At that time, you said you were coming to save me, but that slash of your sword deliberately blocked all my escape routes. Others couldn't see it, but how could I not have felt it? Was this your way of saving me? That slash could either kill me directly or force me to the 100-legged beast. Death awaited me no matter what. In the end, I was dragged away by the 100-legged beast. So that's how it was." Su Shu stared angrily at Zhou Hao. "I was wondering why you took the initiative to ask to save Lin Tian and didn't let me help. So that's how it was?" Su Shu knew very well what kind of person Lin Tian was, so she didn't doubt Lin Tian's words at all. "Little Shu, tell us about what happened that day," Mu Qing said. Su Shu didn't hesitate and simply recounted what happened that day. Gradually, Mu Qing and Shi Dong's faces sank again. "Bastard," Shi Dong shouted in a low voice. Like Su Shu, Shi Dong and Mu Qing both believed in Lin Tian's character, so naturally they believed in Lin Tian's words. In an instant, the two stared at Zhou Hao with a somewhat unfriendly gaze. "Elders, little Shu, Zhou Hao, swear to the heavens that I have never done such a thing. That day, I really did want to save junior brother Lin from a difficult situation. If there is even half a lie, may the heavens strike me with lightning." Zhou Hao raised his right hand and swore. Then he said, Perhaps junior brother Lin's cultivation wasn't high at that time, and he comprehended my sword move wrongly. Staring at Zhou Hao, Mu Qing and Shi Dong frowned slightly. From Zhou Hao's expression, the two of them couldn't see the slightest clue. They couldn't help but wonder if Lin Tian had really sensed wrongly. In Zhou Hao's words, with Lin Tian's cultivation at that time, it was very likely that he had sensed wrongly. At this moment, the sword chime sounded again. Enough, Zhou Hao. Put away your hypocrisy. It's meaningless in front of me. Lin Tianan looked indifferently at Zhou Hao. I don't know what others think of you, and I don't want to know. I only need to know what kind of person you are. Get up here. Today, either you live and I die, or I die and you live. Such domineering words caused all the spectators to be moved. Madman! Many of the spectators were shocked. Facing a divine vein realm expert with a body refinement realm cultivation, his words were so sonorous and powerful. Zhou Hao's expression was somewhat ugly. Originally, he wanted to jump out and defeat Lin Tian when Lin Tian was at his peak. He wanted to cripple or kill Lin Tian and make Lin Tian feel despair and regret. However, at this moment, Lin Tian had the initiative from beginning to end. This made him feel very uncomfortable. Then let's fight. After spitting out these three words, Zhou Hao leaped up and stepped onto the main stage. For a moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the main stage. Enough! Both of you stop. At this moment, Mu Qing opened his mouth and said in a deep voice, both of you are the geniuses of the Nine-Yang martial house. You are the hope of the martial house. There is no need to fight to the death. Both of you should take a step back. Elder, as you can see, Zhou Hao is not the one who is picking a fight. It is junior brother Lin who has been overbearing. Although Zhou Hao is not talented, he still has his dignity. If he wants to fight, then let's fulfill his wish. Zhou Hao said. After speaking, Zhou Hao took out the life or death contract from his chest and raised it. Mu Qing frowned and looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian, take a step back. It is not too late to retreat now. At this point, Mu Qing was actually reminding Lin Tian that if a body refinement realm cultivator wanted to fight a divine vein realm cultivator, it was simply an act of seeking death. Mu Qing did not want Lin Tian to die. Lin Tian naturally understood Mu Qing's good intentions, but he shook his head. This battle must happen. Staring at Zhou Hao, Lin Tian's eyes were firm and cold. Mu Qing and Shi Dong looked at each other and shook their heads. If there was a grudge between the martial house's disciples, they could set up a life-or-death battle. The martial house had no reason to interfere, just like Lin Tian and Mo Senator now. Lin Tian and Zhou Hao were determined to fight. Even though they were elders, they could not stop them. This guy. Su Shu was angry. Mo Kong understood Lin Tian very well, but Su Shu understood Lin Tian even better. Although she knew that Lin Tian would not compromise, she was still annoyed. This was a life-or-death battle. The situation had developed to this point. Once the battle started, even Mu Qing and Shi Dong would not be able to stop it. Lin Tian was only a body refinement realm cultivator. How could he be Zhou Hao's opponent? This Lin Tian is somewhat irrational. A body refinement realm cultivator against a divine vein realm cultivator will definitely lose. Behind the rockery, several inner palace disciples shook their heads. On the main arena, the atmosphere became tense like a crossbow being drawn. Two figures stood facing each other. Zhou Hao stared at Lin Tian, his eyes flashing with a sinister light. Junior brother Lin, are you sure you are ready? Zhou Hao put his hands behind his back. So much nonsense. How long are you going to pretend to be a hypocrite? Lin Tian mocked. Zhou Hao's face suddenly sank. Lin Tian was expressionless. He lifted his leg and kicked a silver sword from a disciple to Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao caught it in his hand. Come, I won't take advantage of you. The long sword in his hand pointed at Zhou Hao. A powerful aura spread out from Lin Tian's body. Such a posture once again moved the crowd. Facing a divine pulse expert, he can be so calm. Should I call him a madman or a strong man? No matter what kind of person he is someone we can't compare to, many martial house disciples said. Zhou Hao held the long sword with one hand behind his back and shook his head. Junior brother Lin, you are indeed strong, but you are too arrogant. Moreover, your arrogance is used in the wrong place. A cold smile hung on the corner of Zhou Hao's mouth. His body was like a bolt of lightning as he instantly arrived in front of Lin Tian. The silver sword in his hand glowed with a cold light. The body refinement realm and the divine vein realm cannot be compared. So fast. Is this the speed of a divine pulse expert? The crowd's pupils shrank. With a swoosh, the silver sword in Zhou Hao's hand seemed to cut through the air, instantly approaching Lin Tian's abdomen. Lin Tian was expressionless. His body flashed, and his long sword met the attack. Clang! An ear-piercing sound rang out. Lin Tian's long sword completely blocked Zhou Hao's silver sword. Zhou Hao's pupils shrank. Lin Tian could barely keep up with his speed. With a cold snort, a majestic sword chi erupted from the silver sword. Boom! Like the eruption of a divine flame, like a flood, a loud sound rang out. Lin Tianji felt his right hand go numb. A majestic force passed through the body of the sword and landed on his body. His body was immediately pushed back, and his chest felt a little stuffy. Seeing this scene, the crowd suddenly shivered. As expected, it is too difficult for a body refinement realm cultivator to contend with a divine pulse expert. Even a monstrous genius like him is still lacking. Someone sighed. End of chapter. Chapter 88. Lin Tian stabilized his body and circulated the true yuan in his body, instantly erasing the tightness in his chest. Staring ahead, Lin Tian had to admit that Zhou Hao, who was in the divine pulse realm, was indeed strong. Zhou Hao stood with one hand behind his back and looked at Lin Tian. He said coldly, "Do you see the gap between us? It's impossible for a body refinement realm cultivator to compete with a divine pulse realm cultivator. You can only fall from the main stage like the others." After a pause, Zhou Hao's eyes became cold. "However, you will be more miserable than the others." "You're really confident," Lin Tiantan said coldly. "Confident? What a joke. Do I need confidence to defeat you? In my eyes, you're just an ant." Zhou Hao said. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "Oh, since you stood in the main stage, your tone and attitude have gradually changed. Why? Don't you need to continue pretending?" Zhou Hao sneered and said, "In a battle of life and death, you die, I live. There's no need to show mercy." "You die, I live?" Lin Tian said sarcastically. "You think too highly of yourself." Zhou Hao snorted. With a flash of his figure, he immediately charged towards Lin Tian. In a flash, a cold sword intent locked onto Lin Tian. It was powerful and terrifying. Most importantly, Zhou Hao's speed was very fast. Sword slash. A cold voice sounded. Zhou Hao appeared in front of Lin Tian. His amazing speed made many spectators exclaim. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. Lin Tian's long sword blocked Zhou Hao's silver sword again. Zhou Hao frowned. The silver sword in his right hand vibrated, and a majestic sword aura burst out from the sword. Humph! A cold snort sounded. Lin Tian's long sword vibrated as well. The sword aura shot out in all directions. With a boom, both of them retreated. This attack is actually a draw with Zhou Hao. So strong! Many people were shocked. Lin Tian was in the body refinement realm, while Zhou Hao was in the divine pulse realm. However, at this moment, although Lin Tian had retreated, he had also forced Zhou Hao to take a few steps back. This guy. Su Shu's eyes sparkled. Zhou Hao's face sank slightly. Being forced back by a body refinement realm cultivator, he felt that his face had been damaged. "You're good," Zhou Hao said coldly. Lin Tiantan said indifferently, "I don't need you to tell me that. I've been fine since the beginning." He stood with his sword in hand. Facing Zhou Hao, who was in the divine vein realm, he appeared calm and composed. Zhou Hao's expression turned even colder. You only know how to talk big. With a slight shake of his right hand, the silver sword in Zhou Hao's hand emitted an ear-piercing sword sound, causing many of the spectators to cover their ears. This is the 13 sword cuts? That's right, it's the 13 slashes. Someone exclaimed. The 13 sword chop was a high-grade body-refining martial technique. It could be ranked in the top 3 among martial techniques of the same level. The 13 swords chop was extremely fast, and its power was extremely terrifying. Moreover, every time the sword was swung, it would be accompanied by an ear-piercing sword sound. The sword sound seemed to come from all directions, and it could disturb one's mind. This martial technique was also extremely difficult to cultivate. It was very difficult for ordinary people to cultivate this martial technique to the greater mastery realm. Looking at this situation, Zhou Hao seems to have cultivated this martial technique to the greater mastery realm. Someone whispered. In the main arena, Zhou Hao's figure flickered, and his speed became faster. In an instant, he appeared in front of Lin Tian. The ear-piercing sword sound reverberated, and the ice-cold sword aura mercilessly slashed down. Lin Tian felt a sense of threat. The sword in Zhou Hao's hand gave him a great sense of oppression. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and instantly moved 3 feet away, dodging Zhou Hao's sword. Zhou Hao exclaimed in surprise. Lin Tian actually dodged his attack again. Zhou Hao's expression darkened. Without any hesitation, his silver sword vibrated and slashed at Lin Tian again. However, this attack still missed. Third slash. Zhou Hao shouted and continued to pursue Lin Tian. However, Lin Tian seemed to be able to sense the rhythm of his attacks and was always able to dodge at the last moment. This scene surprised many of the spectators. In the main arena, Lin Tian's expression was calm as he flickered continuously. He cultivated the Tianyi Soul mantra and was a stage 3 array manipulator. His perception was many times stronger than cultivators of the same level. Relying on his powerful soul power, he was always able to capture the trajectory of Zhou Hao's sword when it was close to his body, and then quickly dodge. Ridiculous! Do you only know how to run? Zhou Hao mocked. After several consecutive sword slashes failed to land on Lin Tian, his expression became even colder. Run? Lin Tian Lung smiled. With a whoosh, without anyone noticing, his speed suddenly increased. In almost an instant, he appeared in front of Zhou Hao and slashed down with his sword. Zhou Hao's expression changed, and he hurriedly raised his silver sword to protect himself. At this moment, Lin Tian raised his leg and kicked out. His speed was still astonishing. Zhou Hao's expression changed again. He suddenly stomped on the stage and retreated rapidly. Why are you retreating when facing me, a little cultivator in the body refinement stage? Aren't you a divine pulse stage expert? Lin Tian's voice sounded. Standing in place, the tip of the long sword in his hand pressed against the ground. Lin Tian's expression was mocking. You barely won by half a move. What are you so proud of? Zhou Hao's voice was filled with disdain. Barely? Half a move? You really think you're infallible? Lin Tian mocked. As soon as his words fell, his figure flashed and his whole body stepped out like lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Zhou Hao again, and the long sword in his hand mercilessly slashed down. Such astonishing speed immediately shocked many people. Clang! Zhou Hao raised his silver sword and blocked Lin Tian's long sword. Oh! Block not bad. Let's continue. Lin Tian Lung laughed. With a whoosh, his figure disappeared in an instant, and then suddenly appeared behind Zhou Hao, his long sword slashing down again. Zhou Hao's expression changed. He hurriedly squatted down and avoided Lin Tian's attack. Not bad, continue. Lin Tian's voice rang out. However, this voice was incomparably ear-piercing in Zhou Hao's ears. However, Zhou Hao didn't care so much. At this moment, Lin Tian's speed was extremely fast. It was as if he was stepping on space nodes to move, as if he had merged with the space. Every time the first sword fell, the second sword would fall from another direction, causing Zhou Hao to be exhausted. Fast. So fast. This, Lin Tian? How did his speed suddenly become so terrifying? Many spectators' hearts trembled. At this moment, Lin Tian's speed was too fast. Many people couldn't even see the trajectory of Lin Tian's movement. In the distance, even Mu Qing and Shi Dong were shocked. This kind of figure is extremely similar to the scene when he fought with Mo Sin last time, but his speed has become even faster. Shi Dong said in a deep voice, "During the assessment, I felt that it was a little strange. Could it be some kind of movement martial skill? Just by looking at his movements, it's even more exquisite than my divine pulse realm movement technique, 7 extinction flowing clouds. However, the martial house doesn't have a movement martial skill like this. Where did this little guy learn this movement technique from?" Mu Qing frowned. Both of them were experts at the peak of the divine pulse realm. Naturally, they could clearly see the trajectory of Lin Tian's movement. However, it was also because of this that the two of them were even more shocked. Shi Dong paused and said, "Lin Tian, the young master of Fengjian City's Lin clan. Previously, his body was weak and sickly, and he was often bullied. Before the martial house assessment, the Lin clan's old residence was burned down. He disappeared for a few days, and when he reappeared, it was as if he had become a different person. He went from an ordinary person to the third firmament of body refinement. Moreover, he already had that kind of movement technique. For disciples who entered the Nine-Yang martial house, the Nine-Yang martial house would naturally investigate their background. Especially for a 9-star talent like Lin Tian, the martial house's investigation would be even more thorough. Thus, Shi Dong already knew about Lin Tian's past from the martial house's investigators. Mu Qing's eyes flashed with a trace of light. "What do you mean?" "There must be an expert behind him," Shi Dong said in a low voice. Mu Qing was silent. After a moment, he nodded. "It's very possible. Lin Tian was a 9-star talent. If he was discovered by a wandering hermit, they would definitely not let him go and would definitely take him in as their disciple. This was the only way to explain why Lin Tian went from an ordinary person to the third firmament of body refinement after disappearing for a few days. Moreover, he also had such a profound movement technique." The two of them looked at each other for a moment, and their faces turned heavy. The possibility of this is very high. If it's true, that hermit would let him cultivate by himself after passing down some cultivation techniques and martial skills. Then he would continue to wander the world. This kind of carefree hermit is often the most terrifying. Mu Qing said in a deep voice, "Perhaps even the imperial family cannot afford to offend him." Although imperial power was terrifying, in front of some extremely powerful cultivators, imperial power was simply a joke. This little guy, Shi Dong, smiled bitterly. Lin Tian was a peerless genius. However, Shi Dong and Mu Qing suddenly felt that this was a hot potato. "What are you guys muttering about?" Su Shu asked curiously. Mu Qing coughed and shook his head. "Nothing." Su Shu stared. At this moment, the sound of weapons clashing could be heard. On the main stage, Lin Tian's footwork was exquisite and his speed was astonishing. Ordinary people would not be able to catch his movements. This gave Zhou Hao a lot of trouble and forced Zhou Hao to block. Pooh! A trace of blood rose, and Zhou Hao's chest was pierced. "Outer House's #1 disciple, you're injured." Lin Tian's voice sounded at the same time. At this moment, there was a clear sword wound on Zhou Hao's chest. Blood was dripping, and it was extremely dazzling. He actually injured that Zhou Hao. Many spectators were dumbfounded. Many disciples couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Lin Tian, who was in the body refinement realm, actually injured Zhou Hao, who was in the divine vein realm. This was simply too terrifying. In the distance, Lu Sheng's face was even more ugly and even a little pale. Zhou Hao, who was in the divine vein realm, was actually injured. That little bastard. How strong is he? Lu Sheng gritted his teeth. On the main stage, Zhou Hao's face became extremely gloomy. "Very good. Since young, you're the first person to stab me." A sinister light flashed in Zhou Hao's eyes. His body shook, and an even more terrifying aura spread out. I will make you pay the most tragic price. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.